Hey Abhay, welcome to the All Walks of Life podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so much, Ishan. Very excited to have this conversation with you today. I've been waiting for it for a long time. Would have wonderful, like would have worked wonders if you would have met in person. But I'm still excited to what lies ahead in this conversation.
No, for sure. And let's see if we can meet again sometime soon. Obviously, when things lighten up with Corona and stuff. But yeah, just before we start off with the conversation today, just let the viewers and watchers know a little bit about yourself and the work you do because I find it fascinating, to be honest.
Hi all. My name is Abhay Maheshwari. I'm a management consultant by profession. That's my day job. That's where I earn my bread and butter from. And I side hustle as a storyteller and a podcaster. I have my own stories podcast by the name Lal Chashma. It's a Hindi stories podcast. Trying to connect with my own roots and connect with my language and try to bring out the genuine emotions that somehow we have all forgotten in our daily lives. They are right in front of us, but we somehow tend to forget them or ignore them in the rush of our lives. So I try to bring them in form of stories, and that's the essence of the podcast. Apart from that, I I pretty much work Monday to Friday. I think storytelling and podcast, I think, has become the only what do you say, relief nowadays. But overall, I'm a sports enthusiast. I like watching motorsports rather. Like watching motorsports. I also perform live storytelling here and there across Mumbai and Pune. Of course, pre-COVID, that was more. I was more active on that. So yeah, that's about me.
Yeah. So what what was your inspiration behind because you said you were a storyteller in that sense, but so was that sort of the inkling in starting off a podcast, or what was your thing behind starting a podcast?
So what happened was whenever I used to go and do these live storytelling sessions, right? People used to come up and say that, hey, we like the stories that you do. But more importantly, I think they liked the way how I delivered it. Somehow they found my voice very engaging. And I'm not tooting my own horn over here. It's purely what people kept telling me over the years that I did storytelling. So they said that there is something about my voice that they found very engaging, and people were kind of hooked onto it. And in the live performance, the enactment and taking them to a different way, like the voice did that job. But I was never, just like most of the people, like I never thought too much about my own voice. I said it's okay. I mean, you know I'm not Morgan Freeman, Amitabh Bachchan, somebody who has that baritone or like a very very like godly voice of it. But what happened was, like, in December of 2019, I was pretty sick. I had the typical viral fever, but I was very sick. Like, I was very tired, couldn't work through the days and everything. So I was resting, and I just played one of my own recordings randomly in the middle of the night when it was exceptionally silent. There was no noise. I was in my bed, and this was a recording of a story which I had just written at that time, and I wanted to submit it to one of the storytelling collectives, and I thought that let me just listen to it once, just for the sake of it. It was a personal story, so I thought sun lete. And that's when it hit me that, oh, like, it's not bad. I mean, it's okay, it's decent. And what happened was, in January, coincidentally, January 2020, right, when the world was like coming into the grip of lockdown and everything. There was this event which was conducted in Mumbai by Commune, the storytelling collective, and they did something called as a Spoken Fest. They do it every year, and this time they had a section on podcasting. So Spotify had come down, and Spotify India team had come down, and they were talking about podcasting. So I was very very interested, because I thought that this will be a medium where I can be more proactive in writing, because that was one thing that I always liked doing, but because of work and everything, I just could never take that up. So I thought that this could be a good measure that podcasting can keep me a little bit more, consistent in my writing, give me a little bit of a side hobby and everything. So that's where it eventually began, like somewhere around Jan 19th of 2020 is when I released my first episode. And from there on, it's been a good journey. It's been almost more than a year now, and I love the entire process. Because it's a big relief, working in the corporate, and then you come back and you do something creative. This is your own space. I don't have to ask questions. I don't have to wait for anything. I mean, I can just go do And the fact that in the lockdown, definitely this became like a big solace, like a lot of other people who found solace in creativity, in YouTubing and video making. I This became my go-to thing, that okay, Monday to Friday I'm just doing it for my stomach, and
Hmm.
Saturday Sunday I'm doing it for my heart. It became something like that. But back in 2011, I think 2011, yeah, 2011, I actually, this is a very lesser known fact. I don't usually speak about it. But in 2011, I did a small interview on All India Radio also. And back then, also, the RJ actually, after the interview, he cut the call. He called me up and he called my dad and, everyone, because I was still a kid back then. I was in my first year of engineering. So the RJ actually praised a lot. He spoke a lot about my voice and the way I talk, and that there is this some sort of engagement. Now back then I was like way too naive to understand. दूसरों के बच्चों को तो हर कोई तारीफ करता है, वो that became the typical middle class stamp that was there कि हाँ ठीक है, मतलब you get 90%, you have to get 95 because
Hmm.
दूसरों के बच्चों की सब तारीफ करते हैं. So, so all those things started coming back to me, and I'm like, yeah, maybe there's something. If RJs and if some people are actually feeling it, why would somebody randomly come and say, lie to you? So yeah, that is how I thought that audio can become a medium, and that's how I started podcasting.
So you touched a little bit about the fact that you listen to your own voice, be it a recording that you had saved of yours. So can you speak to the medium in itself, like the medium of podcasting? Like, do you feel it's more intimate than, let's say, other mediums? Because for the I do a video podcast as well, but I know there are several podcasters who only have an audio based platform, not just because it's also because of choice, because they feel that there is a reason they prefer audio based conversations, because there's there's almost an intimacy that you get which is not always present in video conversations, if that makes sense. So it's like I was having like a previous conversation which you referenced before we started the call today. It was with an RJ as well, and she was talking about how she simply listens to podcasts only on the audio. She turns it on when she's having food or she's doing some jobs around the house or what have you. I don't know. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Is there an intimate connect that you feel maybe your listeners has have written to you about?
Yeah, that's definitely the case. As a kid, I remember when I used to have a Sony Walkman, and back in the days before the concept of CDs or MP3 player, this is a Walkman which used to open. You put a cassette, a cassette full of 11, 20 songs, and the only other option was radio. So when I used to max out all the movie songs that used to come in the cassette, I'll be like, oh my god, where do I go? Like now I can't wait to go and buy another cassette. Like
Hmm.
buying cassettes also was like a family affair. Like everyone has to agree that which movie and which song. At least in my house, there wasn't that liberty to, okay, you can just go and buy this rock CD or something like that. So I immediately turned to radio, and I still remember that late night, I would listen to radio and some of those radio shows जो हिंदी में आते थे, and Love
Hmm.
Guru and all those things. And I immediately start visualizing those things. आई थिंक कहीं ना कहीं मेरा एक विजुअलाइजेशन पावर हमेशा अच्छा ही रहा है कि कोई कुछ भी कैसे बताता है तो आई एम एबल टू लाइक क्विकली पिक इट अप एंड स्टार्ट imagining it and thinking it how it will be. And from there on it became like a ongoing thing. So so then I got to know some shows that they used to come in the afternoon, some shows which used to come late in the night, horror shows and all. So I became more regular and frequent around it. That's where at least my relation with audio started. So for me, then when I had my first car, when I started driving here and there, if I'm alone in the car, I will probably not listen to music,
Hmm.
unless I'm in the specific mood of it. But I would open up radio, I would, listen to conversations, I'll try to imagine their body language. And then a lot of revolution also happened in radio at that time. Like Radio Mirchi had just come. So
Hmm.
in Delhi, there was this RJ called Nitin. And he used to come up with Ulta Pulta Nitin would be, because if you reverse Nitin, and it's still Nitin, the
Yeah.
name. So that's his segment. It came, and it kind of attracted me, that how with I don't even know how Nitin looks like, but I am hooked onto it. And the day I actually saw Nitin in one of, that's when Facebook came, like in class 11th, like 2010, 11ish only. That's when the first time I saw Nitin, that, oh, Nitin is like a very healthy man. Like he's not, somebody I had imagined it to be, like, because I didn't know who he is. So for me, drawing that connection with the voice and with the physique, it it just became like a very big thing that, oh my god, like I don't know what is happening, and they are doing this magic, like they are producing these sounds and creating this world for me. And I was always like fascinated by filmmaking as such, and as a kid also I used to watch a lot of behind the scenes uh, series and everything. So for me it became like a natural inclination to know more about audio, and gradually I developed that intimacy. And when podcast was introduced, even today, like even early in the morning, I was listening to a podcast which is called Housework, and it's by Gimlet Media. It's nothing but one woman giving a monologue about the corporate life and the kind of economy, like currently we are in the identity economy, where our where the firms are no longer looking for they are saying that your identity belongs to how much you contribute at work. That's who you are, right? So like, I'm not going into the deeper concepts of it, but the lady simply talking, well, I was actually hooked onto it because the topic was so wonderful, the production was wonderful. And I'm very choosy here, like I'll be very honest. I don't like content which is just randomly going in different directions. There are some conversations in Indian context also, because we somehow, I think, we haven't fully realized what Indians would really appreciate. And maybe just like the OTT platform, it will take another few years for the
Mm.
podcasting industry to realize that Indian audience can also be given some mature content. So
Yeah.
most of the conversational podcasts that happen in India are just two people talking, throwing. It's not even like
Yeah,
there's no
it's
story
yeah.
involved or anything. It's very very raw, right? But when
Mm.
I start listening to some of the podcasts from Australia, some
Mm.
of the podcasts from US, and a few one from even from Middle East, I started realizing that there's a very different play that you can do with audio. So yes, to answer your question, sorry,
No, that's
in
fine.
short, you can have a very intimate connection with audio. It is a medium, your ears are directly going, like what you are listening is directly going in your brain. The other reason is, see there are a lot of people who cannot visualize things also, right?
Mm.
So immediately nahi hota, matlab they can't immediately see that if a thunder strike ka sound is given to you some people are not able to immediately visualize that, okay, there is a bolt of lightning that just came down. So for them, they might not find it that intimate, because it's not triggering any brain cell in them, right? It's not triggering any amazement, astonishment in them. So they'll be like, theek hai, ha, matlab somebody went and god. But for me, if you play Malgudi days, if you take out everything from video and if you play in the audio, I'll imagine a village just out of free India. And so maybe that's also one reason why some people find the intimacy way more than as compared to other people. And that's why maybe probably there is a very good chunk of an audience that goes towards conversational podcasts, because it's more straightforward to consume. There isn't much
Mm.
stress on me, right? I can just listen to it as and when I go doing any chores. But I think some of the best podcast contents is best consumed when you pay it some attention. Like
Yeah.
if you have heard Blockbuster, if you have heard
Mm.
Blockbuster, or even the Indian productions, such something like Hairs of Pandavas, right? If you
Mm.
sit down and like just calmly listen to the audio engineering, the sound engineering that is done, I mean, it can just paint a very different picture in front of your mind.
Yeah, there's a certain art to it in itself. Like you talked a lot about like hygiene, and I think that let's say the most basic factor to consider, right? Like I've had other guests as well who talk about when they consume podcasts that um, if they don't see, let's say, a good mic setup in place in terms of when they are initially starting off a conversation as well, that just turns them off and they don't really want to listen in. So that's crucial as well to just get that buy-in from your listener, because then you can almost hook them in and then probably they'll be interested in listening to what you have to say as well. So yeah, that's vitally important. But like something you touched about right now pretty much was that the Indian industry will have to take, let's say, a lot more time to get used to this medium of podcasting. What do you make of the Indian industry right now and how they consume podcasts? Like, what do you think? Do you think that storytelling podcasts are bigger, conversational podcasts are bigger? Like, what do you make of it?
See, if you see statistically, I think then the motivational, inspirational genre is high in India as a form of consumption. Now that motivation can come as form of a conversation where, let's say, I'm speaking to some expert who's talking about something, or it could be just one person giving gyan in terms of how to lead life. um, I think stories and fiction is probably a genre which is not very well uh, head into right now. Particularly, see, if you see most of the ones which are done in Hindi, right? Most of the storytelling podcasts in Hindi
Hmm.
are the ones they're picking up old stories. वो प्रेमचंद का स्टोरी निकाल के
Right.
बोल रहा है, right? वो हरिशंकर परसाई का स्टोरी निकाल के बोल रहा है. The most of the poetry podcasts are also like that. Like very few original works are coming up. That's one reason why when I started, I could have also simply taken I have like a repository of books by Harishankar Persai, like almost every book that he has ever written. But that's not what my intent was. Like I wanted to write, give out a different perspective to things. So stories may, I think we are still kind of lagging behind. And this is personal, like totally my
Hmm.
opinion. When I see the potential, because where we are coming from, there was a time when All India Radio in different languages used to do, and even they still do, used to do shows, right? People would turn into like same thing, yeah. Like पहले घर में खाना बन रहा होता था या कुछ भी और होता था, people used to turn on the
Yeah.
radio,
Yeah.
listen to that show, right?
Uh,
People would even treat Doordarshan as a radio. Okay, ठीक है, like some
hmm.
show is coming, and that's how most of the housewives, at least in the 90s and 80s, would work. That they are spending time in the kitchen and then TV is on. So it's all just passive consumption, right? Uh, तो जो fiction genre है, जो story genre है, I think that has somehow gotten down, and people are now more about just talking things out. There is this talking. There's a lot of
Hmm.
gyan that is available right now. There's a sea of knowledge, like they rightly say, and I think everyone's just keeps adding their perspective to it. And story podcast is something that I would want in India to become better.
Yeah.
More people to come and write their original work, and then take it to the next level. Like, don't just like maybe make the blockbuster of India. Like the
Hmm.
one that I see is the Eyes of the Pandavas, which Vine Studio released last year, which is at least an attempt in that direction, that they will be like our own Lord of the Rings kind of a series where we could turn to, and we could say, because even after so many years we are all turning back to Ramayana and Mahabharata. Come on, yeah. Like you are saying that there's nothing we have written. Like I understand they are sort of like the biggest ones that are written, but we
Hmm.
need to create our own characters. We need to give some sort of a twist. If not, then we have to bring out stories like how I was speaking as part of my bonus episode. I was speaking to one of the directors from TVF Media, and how TVF revolutionized the 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 web series platform,
Hmm. Hmm.
where they are bringing stories of the common man, like Chakota Factory ho gaya, Pictures ho gaya, Hamare Aspirations ke hain, talking about that. They recently did a series called Gullak, which was a big hit on Sony Live, and that is about middle class India, like how four members in a family, they live and grow. So it took a very long time for people to start talking about these stories, and that's what I mean when I say that it's going to take a lot of time for the podcasting industry to really come down and create a show which a tier 3 city guy can also connect to,
Yeah.
because that's currently being done by All India Radio. That's
Hmm.
not being done by podcast may, I think the way they're penetrating, which is also fair, because that's how the business model for anything new would be, is you would penetrate from the place where you have the most consumption, and then you slowly go down to where there's most possibility, because you have to
Hmm.
start building your brand, right? So in tier 2, tier 1 cities, it's most consumed, but the opportunity actually lies in tier 3, tier 4. Like you would have successfully created a content if, let's say, somebody in some district ahead of Lucknow is also either listening to or watching it on his or
Yeah.
her personal.
Yeah, I mean that's the sort of follow-up question I wanted to ask was like because like to speak to myself as well, like when I when I said that I started doing a podcast, my friends, my family, like there were quite a few people who didn't really know what a podcast was. And I would say because I live in a metro city myself, so and that was shocking for me to see as well. So yeah, I think like what was your reaction as well, like if I could get your take, like when you said that you started a podcast out.
Nobody knew. If you search back on my Instagram, you will find post where I have written stories. I'm answering questions. Okay, what is a podcast? Where you can listen to? Why you should listen
Oh.
to? I've literally done those stories because my own friends, some of my close friends, they know that I used to do storytelling. So they're like, "ठीक है, like
Hmm.
he's narrating some stories, but what is this? Like, is it like YouTube? Like, what is
Right.
he doing? Like, audio mein kaun sunega?" So I actually have to do my own personal campaign, and this is like in January 20, where actually the biggest player in podcasting, Spotify, just came into India, right? Like they were just setting up their foot. So it's not like today everyone speaks about it. Jio Saavn, Gaana,
Hmm.
every Tom, Dick and Harry app, other Tom, Dick and Harry app has started speaking about podcasts. There's a big network, and a big credit for that goes to the lockdown, because
Yeah.
what the industry might have anticipated the climb would be in the next 2 years, they got that exposure suddenly when 3 months people don't have anything to do. So
Hmm.
they started listening about it, and they started making their own things. For me it was like nobody knew. I have 500 friends on Instagram, and I'm sure by after 1 year, like now that I'm doing it, I've been posting about it, got recognized, and now they are also aware that there's something called as a podcast as a word.
Hmm.
I think now probably all 500 of them know, okay, what podcast is. But certainly I face that challenge when I try to put my niche podcast in in the tier 2 tier 3 cities. like
Hmm.
like up until like now I was more dependent on the organic growth that it was having, and which was also good, like coming in from different known cities, the metro cities. But for somebody like me who's making a Hindi podcast, my audience is most, like I said
Yeah.
earlier, like
Yeah.
it's in tier 3, tier 2, tier 4. Like that's where I'm going to get my traffic. But pushing there, penetrating there, like for as an independent creator also, sometimes I feel it's not that easy. I
Yeah.
can't just share links and put hashtags, because I did some hit and trial with advertisements also, and I realized that the the extent to which I use Instagram is not the way how everyone's using Instagram.
Hmm.
It's very
Hmm.
different.
Yes.
The kind of people who started liking my post are probably the ones who are only on one social platform. They are not on
Right.
Twitter. They are not.
Yeah.
So it's so as an independent creator, I also have to like be very channelized in how I do that marketing of my podcast. And I can surely understand that there is a larger challenge for a brand to do the same, but of course the brand has more resources and they can push that thing much more easily, particularly
No.
if you are established, something like Jio Saavn, who already has like 100 million kind of a customer base who are listening to songs, right? So
Right. Yeah. So
they're
it's
just
easier for them
converting.
to. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all about like how you penetrate in your market, and then you go about it.
No, I think you touched upon like a really good point because the conversion is not always evident, if I can use that word. So, for example, if you put something out on your Instagram, even if it's a story or a post, even whatever, eh, people may see it, people may know that you're doing a podcast, but it's very like maybe 1 in 10 would then go and click on the Spotify link, or 1 in 10 would actually go and actually search for it. So yeah, and think that's the same with every medium, really. I think uh, and I've seen this for myself when I put out stuff on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, like they may like it on that particular platform in itself, but then it's not translated into going into YouTube. I think if you want to penetrate the YouTube market, or the other podcast platforms, there are different ways of going about it, if that makes sense. So like
Yeah,
YouTube, you
that's
can make,
true.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the same thing I used to think. So see, I was never a social media,
Hmm.
very active on social media before I started podcasting. Like I used to like post one photo in like 2-3 months. That too of like if it's like a celebration and it's worth posting and keeping that as a memory on the social media. Okay. But when I started coming here, I started pushing things through Instagram. I realized that when I open Instagram, I'm only there to look at photos. And the
Hmm.
most immediate action is I'll keep scrolling and double tap, keep scrolling, double tap. If I have to like something. Varna, story hai, single tap, I'll keep scrolling. Brainlessly, I'm just doing that. I'm not even consuming anything. Brainlessly. For 600 people, stories, I'm just doing tap. And that's in that mode when I'm there, I'm not actually looking to get redirected to
Hmm.
some YouTube or some Spotify or something. Like I am in a zone. Like I just opened it. Maybe I'm on the thinking pot. I'm on the toilet seat.
Yeah.
अभी यहाँ पे मैं कहाँ सुनूंगा? Like where will I listen to your podcast? Right. But so these are some of the things which I as a consumer started thinking. Where should I like spread the word?
Hmm.
because it's not like Spotify is, Spotify has its own social media where
Yeah. Yeah.
people can single click and you can listen to it, or it's nothing's embedded in this,
Hmm.
right? Even if
Hmm.
Spotify promotion has to open in Spotify app.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is definitely a challenge, like how you use the social media that is there. But certainly, what I feel is, in my own personal experience, and I think that's how everything eventually works, is once the word spreads across, you get some people who are interested in it, right? So it's like I said, like I like to listen to podcasts, so I actually search on Spotify for some podcast. I
Hmm.
type the themes, I do that extra effort.
Right.
So it's all about finding those few people who will click that link, and those are the ones who you actually want as your consumers in the beginning, because
Hmm.
beginning mein you will get that only. You can't expect, you can't expect that, okay, 500 I'm 100% sure, like I have 596 followers on my Instagram. My reach is up to 200 to 50 people in a day when I see
Hmm.
my stories, okay?
Hmm.
And I know that like 25% of them have only listened to my podcast.
Yeah.
Whereas if you see what the composition of my my 600 followers is, they are actually people who I studied with or I work with and everything, but they don't care. Like, they're like, "ठीक है, चल रहा है, चल रहा है. I
Yeah.
am here for a different business. This guy is asking me to redirect. Fine,
Yeah.
I'll do it in my time." So
Hmm.
I think that's what it is. Like, you come on a platform, you expect something, and the only thing is, which is very very important, and which you also mentioned, that people are then, if someone has taken that effort, that okay, yeah, I keep seeing this guy's post and promotions. Maybe he's doing well. Let me listen to what he's doing or
Hmm.
what she is doing. When they click, they should be hooked onto it,
Yeah.
right? Because if they don't find the quality they're expecting, then they'll be like, "I baksa, I'll
Uh,
like this is not worth my time." So that's the trick, is what I feel in the Indian context. That even though the it's become very easy to make it and build content to
hmm.
people
Hmm.
talking about it, if certain metrics of hygiene and quality are not taken care of, sooner or later they'll be like, "This is not worth my time."
Yeah.
Like I and independent creators like me and you will have to compete, or rather are always in competition with the big production houses,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So if I listen to Gimlet Media, and suddenly if you give me a rookies podcast, and that's made on a very weirdly not at all sound, there's a lot of distraction,
Yeah.
I'd be like, no, like the benchmark is already set.
Yeah.
Some production house has set a benchmark that this is how you can listen to a story. Okay, how much of that dilution I am willing to take?
Hmm.
Nobody's going to take 100% dilution. So if with time it's just going to get difficult and difficult, and people need to realize that if you are independent creator, if somebody takes an effort to go on your show, you have to give them the experience that you're promising, because if you don't, then that person is never going to come back to you.
Yeah. So, how do you think the podcasting market, or or let's say podcasting culture, compares to audiences who go onto YouTube or who go onto Instagram? Because from what I've seen, I think there's a different audience that goes on to Instagram for, let's say, reels or photos or what have you. And there's a different audience which goes on to YouTube to watch long content or whatever content. And there's a different audience that goes on to podcasting to listen to podcasts or whatever. Like, how, like, I don't know if it's always going to be in competition, but like, how do you think about these things? Like, do you think about furthering your let's say brand on Instagram, so making I don't know, making content on Instagram, be it reels, be it whatever, making content on YouTube? Like, do you think about all these things, or are you only focused in on your podcast right now? So there's probably
Personally,
two
for me, I'm
questions.
focused on. Ah, no, no, I got it. So personally, for me, I think to answer the second question first, firstly, I don't have the bandwidth with the job and everything that I make content. Secondly, my content, which like I finally realized, after doing storytelling audio, that I like the audio creation process. Because I enjoy consuming it, so that's the content I would like to create. So for me, if you go to my Instagram, my social media, you'll see I don't don't create content around my podcast, and neither I don't even have an inclination to create the similar kind of content which is already there right now.
Hmm.
If you have to, if you talk about me, I use social media simply to market what I have. That's it.
Right. Yeah.
And that too once or twice. I'm not the kind of guy who'll just keep making selfie videos and keep telling people swipe up, swipe. Nahi, karna hai karo, nahi karna hai mat karo. It's okay. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not, because I'm also not that kind of a guy.
Yeah.
कैसे बैठ के swipe up guys swipe नहीं ठीक है,
Mm.
it's okay यार. I I do it. If something is out there, I would rather approach it differently than asking
Organically.
that. So
Yeah.
that's just, yeah, organically. Like, so that's just my view on how I consume it. And I am generally not attracted to the other kind of content which is usually there on, the kind of reels and people
Mm.
dancing on certain. I know I'm touching a very, different nerve, with no disrespect or anything. It's
Yeah.
just not something that I like. People who enjoy it, they make it, but I just don't enjoy, like, uh, those things, because my motivation right from day one to do anything, Ishan, is not likes. ठीक है,
Yeah.
मतलब ना likes है. मुझे अच्छा लगता है, मैं वो काम करता हूँ. With even in my personal life, I'm that kind. Okay, like,
Hmm.
if I want to do this, if it's expensive, I'll do it, because at that moment I feel this is going to give me content,
Yeah.
like self satisfaction, content, genuine happiness, right? So sometimes if I have to spend like 200 rupees more, 300 rupees more, I'll go for it.
Hmm.
That's how it is. So I go for genuine moments of happiness, and what I want to deliver out of it. My success, how I measure, is when people send me messages.
Yeah.
So like, I could never believe that the stories I write or narrate are actually hitting people to that level.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that is the reward that I seek. Even in my professional life, the way a lot of people say that my boss doesn't acknowledge my work and ye wo and blah blah. So, I'm not the kind. मतलब तुम मेरा पोस्टर दीवार पे लगा के, I don't need you to keep shouting that Abhay is the best employee of the company. No, if you understand how good I am, you want to reward me, give me problems and opportunities which are rewarding. That's how I
Hmm.
operate. That's
Yeah.
just my way of operation. I'm
Yeah.
not the kind, like, मतलब मैं नहीं रोता यार 2-5% के मतलब हाइक और उन सब चीजों के लिए. I'm like, what am I more important about is the opportunity you give
Yeah.
me. So personally, for me, I'm not I'm never going to make those reels and and all that thing. And uh, but let's see. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
my YouTube videos are something that have always attracted me, and I am do
Hmm.
considering, because I've been approached by a few folks lately, and they've been asking, okay, how do you do podcasts, how do you manage it with your job? So I feel that a simple, a Zoom setting is good enough. I don't want
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
sugarcoat it or like make it like amazingly big production. Nahin. Like I said, I have to do the best that's available in my time
Hmm.
and this thing. And
Hmm.
I'll probably start with a small series. This is just in a concept that I have, that how you can pursue your passion along with
Your
demanding jobs like
profession. Yeah.
consulting. Yeah. And how you can like build a symbiotic relation, that learnings from here and there you can keep transferring and making use of it, which I find valuable, because I know there are a lot of people like me who are like looking for that kind of
Hmm. Escape.
support.
Yeah.
Escape नहीं कहूँगा, मैं कहूँगा like that kind of a support. Like, a
Huh.
lot of
Okay.
people
Yeah. Yeah.
want to do these things, but sometimes they are stuck, like, and they need a nudge. And I was also stuck, like, when I was given an opportunity, to do something big, versus if I have to balance out my mental and physical health, I have taken the other way around. Like, I have gone for the opportunity and messed up my entire physical and mental existence. So that's what I want to like just do, and like kind of let people know that it's not the end of the world. If you have something that you want to pursue as a passion or something, it's going to be hard, but it's not impossible. So that's a series that I have in mind. But again, that all depends on whether I have the bandwidth to do it or not,
Hmm.
and how things pan out. So let's see.
So, listening to your show and the way it's put out, it's like I'm a big fan. So the thing is, like, I don't even know if I can call my show like a podcast in itself, because you put so much time into it, into thinking about the ways you're gonna go about the episodes. So I just feel it's it's sort of different. I don't know that if you've heard about. So there are these two really famous history podcasters I look up to in the West, really. So this guy called Dan Carlin, he does hardcore history. It's one of the biggest podcasts out there. And there's another professor called Daniele Bolelli. He does history on fire. So they're very well made, very well researched, and yeah, so it's very well put together. Like, the question I sort of want to pose here is that What's your process like in making one of these podcasts? Because often people wouldn't realize how much time it actually goes into making one of those sort of scripted podcasts, where you have to actually work with audio as well, but also the way the script goes. So yeah, what's your process like?
I don't have a fixed process, so to say, right? So most of the stories that I write, they are all realistic fiction. The concept or the basic trigger for them comes from my personal life. Like the next story I'm doing, it's called Vidhi Vidhan, right? You know, in Hindi, that's like it literally translates to protocols and procedures, right? Now, the trigger for that story was one incident that happened with me when I was, constantly juggling between multiple things, and I was
Hmm.
getting frustrated. Okay, oh my god, like there's so many processes, so many protocols, like you. And at the end, I conclude by saying that sometimes when you don't know something about, something, you tend to get frustrated. But once you know how those things work, you probably have that expectation already set. This
Hmm.
was so. This story is actually was triggered by that incident, but has a mixture of a lot of things that people have told me and those memories and which are there in my subconscious. Like the story was my first hand incident, but the last line which I just said, that sometimes when we don't know how things work, we tend to crib a lot. This was a gyan which actually I got when I was almost 12, 13 years old. I was in the bank for the first time and dropping a check for my dad. My dad just said, "Ki bhai, drop this check in the bank." And I didn't know where that checkbox was because it was a government bank, SBI or somebody like that. Okay. And I got frustrated. And when I came back home, there was a family friend who was visiting us, and he told this line to me that, sometimes हमें पता नहीं होता ना process क्या होता है, तुम ज़्यादा परेशान होते हैं. So there's no set process to my stories. There is a trigger that I get, and I try to build around that particular, memory or that particular trigger. And my eventual intent is that people should have a takeaway from it.
Hmm.
It should not simply be like a vlog. कि मतलब, oh, this guy just kept on speaking, 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 speaking. No, eventually it's a story or a stretched anecdote from which I want to give people some sort of a subtle takeaway. I don't like to preach. So in most of my stories, very few times you will see where I actually go and preach. Varna I'm like, if you are smart enough, you will understand what I'm saying. And even if you don't understand, it's okay. Thank you for listening to the show. Not a
Yeah.
problem at all.
Yeah.
But that's what I like. I also like to consume a lot of content which is subtle, where I have to do my thinking,
Hmm.
where I can take out my 10 takeaways out of it, like that. So there's no set process. It's mostly this thing. Once the idea comes in, I start writing. It usually takes me about 3-4 days to create the first draft. Then I clean it out. Then I record it once, very randomly and abruptly on my mobile, uh, in 90% efficiency of how I would like to deliver it. And then I listen to it for at least 2-3 days. I put on my earphones, I'm sitting on the pot, or I'm working, or I'm doing anything. I just listen to that audio. Okay, maza aa raha hai kya? Like, is it actually sounding good? And that's when I realized, oh, there can be some revisions that can be made. So then I go and make some revisions, and then I finally just sit on one night and just record it, thoda bahut clean it out with some filler words. I remove the filler words, add a little music, done. That's it.
So
So
I mean, I'm just trying to think out loud here, because some people, be it writers, be it creatives, really, if they see a problem, let's say if you've identified something you want to work on, then so the manner in which they're working, it's almost to solve that problem or to understand why that particular thing is bugging them almost. So be it with anything that you want to target in society, if it's I don't know, pressure from home to not pursue what you want to pursue, or any problem as such. So is that a particular thinking that when you are sitting down to write the script or think about how you want to put forward the episode, that it's also not only for the listener, but it's also a process for you, where you actually sort of try to understand why it's bugging you and why this problem rather than other problems, if that makes sense.
it does, it does. So the second last story I did called Namak Kam. So the story may, I wanted to, that is an incident that happened in 2014, somewhere in Feb of 2014. And I wanted to, like, this give the listeners a takeaway that there are different kinds of people in the world, and if that person, the main protagonist of that story, if that person can do it, then you can definitely do it, right?
Hmm.
You can aspire to do big. While I was writing that story, I was actually recollecting the exact person. I was trying to figure out kaun tha, kya tha. So
Hmm.
just to give it off over here, basically, I was in a workshop, like a garage sort of a place where I was getting something repaired when this person came on a tricycle, and he actually was, his name was Rajender, and Rajender was on he suffered through polio, so his lower body was gone. Like, he could not move, but he actually came on his tricycle, and he was speaking to the garage owner and the people around to convert a two-wheeler motorcycle into three-wheeler,
Oh.
so that he could drive it one day, and make it in a form that which is most comfortable and ergonomic for him. Now, when this incident happened, I was just standing like 2 feet away from him, and it just hit me. I was a student. I was just in my final year of graduation, and it just hit me very hard that like, I have problems so small that can fit on the tip of my tongue, and here is this guy who's thinking out loud.
Hmm.
So when I was writing this story, the entire incident hit me, and for there were a few moments where I wanted to go very spiritual. I wanted to go and like, write something which is extremely painful. Like, people should feel the pain that folks around are going. So when I was in that moment, I did feel, okay, you know I am getting pulled by it. I do get affected by some of these stories, because they're drawn from my own life. And when you relive that memory, depending on how strong it is and what it relates to, it can hit you. For me, life is, I don't live a life as a कि ठीक है, something happened, oh ठीक है, हो गया खत्म. I live a more conscious way of life, so I register things more consciously, and fortunately I'm good enough to recollect them also when it is required. So yeah, in the process, it does hit you. Like, there was another story which I wrote last year in the middle of lockdown, somewhere around mid of June, called Attempt Ke Marks, which was like, which is a story, like, based on my relation with my dad. And for the first time in many years, me and him, we were speaking very normally, and he just genuinely asked this question, like, what about your promotion and everything and all. And I'm like, you're actually bothering to take interest in my life? That's amazing. And at the same time, like, it you know he gave these examples and everything, and I'm like, yeah, whenever I listen to that story, I feel like forgiving my father, that maybe I'm just too harsh. Maybe, at his age, he's just trying hard
Hmm.
what he does. The first story I did, 90 versus 90,
Yeah, I
is
listened to that
actually
one.
a
Yeah.
yeah, it's a true story. When I look at my sister, when I go back home, and even today, like, despite so many games that are out there, so many things that are out there, me and her, we always play GTA San Andreas. And she has completed all missions. When I'm working in Pune, she's living there, and I was off. Yet she enjoys the fact that me and her, we are doing those missions together. So, while writing, yes, because they are directly driven from my memory, even though they have a pinch of fiction here and there, they do come to me in different forms. And then, of course, they lead to many different ways. Once you are in that zone, then you cannot stop yourself from thinking about so many things
Yeah.
that are out there.
So, Abhay, like, even though you don't sort of have a conversational podcast, don't you feel like with the stories you do put out and the problems that you touch base on, that in itself is giving your viewer base an understanding on things you care about, or things that really touch you, or things that you really want to talk about in that sense? So, even though it's not explicit in stating it, let's say in a conversation, or putting it out there, but it's sort of implicit, so people when listening to it can sort of then understand that maybe that's, yeah, that's probably a place he's coming from, and that's why he's putting it out there.
That's true, actually. That's true. There are so many things that I, in the past few years, I've become very sensitive to. So let me give an example. So, just like any fresh college grad who has a job and good paying job, the immediate instinct is, what do you do with the money that you get? You go party, celebrate, and everything. Now, early on in my career itself, like when I graduated, I faced a lot of challenges. I was part of politics, and then I had to switch my job and make some decisions which probably at that moment not many of us do, because we are just like 6 months into the job, we are exploring the world. We are also driven by a lot of external factors. Like when I was switching my job, my dad was like, stay here for 2 years, then your value will become tenfold, and then you can go. But I was of the opinion, if I stay here for 2 years, either I'll not stay enough for 2 years, I'll probably like die or something. Internally, definitely, and I don't know if physically if I'll just go. But internally, I'll definitely kill myself. And secondly, what you are saying is that after 2 years the value is going to be tenfold. It's going to be monetary value of me is going to be tenfold, but my value still, I will still not be able to make my own value. So when these incidents happened around me, I am just a little bit more sensitive in 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 grasping them. And and just pausing for a minute and just thinking that, why did my dad say that? Or what is the meaning about it? Can it have a separate meaning? Unlike how most people take life a little more lightly than the way I take it. And you know but that's just my way of going
Yeah.
about it. Like
Mm.
I travel on a bike from my house to my office here in Pune. Many a times I have seen like couples bickering and fighting and shouting to their brim, and they're sitting inside a Mercedes. So when I just turn to the right and I'm like, oh my god, so much noise is coming from this guy. And nowadays you don't know. So I was just genuinely checking that there's a lady and there's a guy who's shouting. Let me just see what it is. And then I see it's just a couple who are just bickering quite a lot. And this happened actually, like it's very unbelievable. And coincidentally, like I saw that couple multiple times bickering because they must be living, near me and probably the same office time and all. So it just made me think that I'm on a two-wheeler, probably much more happier than sitting in that,
Yeah.
multi-billion dollar whatever bike or car that the guys are in. So that means money cannot buy happiness. It's as simple as that. And that's true. Like if that it is, then probably they won't be fighting on so much regular basis.
Yeah.
Even in my own house, I've seen like my parents are very religious, extremely religious, and most of the things that I did as a kid, and you don't have a say, right? Like in middle class families, like बोल दिया करना है पूजा तो करेंगे, बोल दिया करना है तो करेंगे. By the time you start developing your own thinking and you start asking whether it's really useful or not, it usually gets late.
Mm.
And that's what happened. So I kept seeing that my parents are like extremely religious people. For any problem in our life, they would first pray to God and then may or may not act on it. I mean, भगवान को बोल दिया कि हमें बचा लो, but भगवान is not coming down. There's no God around me who ever came down to solve our problems. So these things, like I said, like I catch them more. I'm more sensitive maybe to
Mm.
these things,
Mm.
and they stay in my mind, and I just pause here and there, and I keep looking at it. And maybe that's what I'm not intentionally making it a Gyani podcast or trying to change somebody's perspective. No, I am in no power, or I am nobody who will change the world or anything. Like I'm a genuine guy. It's just my genuine emotions. When I look at life that way, it's just how I am. Like it's just how I write things. I visualize things. Like can they be different? Can they be something else? Like I like yesterday itself. Like my bag, the chain of my bag actually got stuck, so it broke. And I went to the nearby guy over here, and the guy's like, "Sir, 50 rupees lagega, 50 rupees lagega." And I'm like, 50 rupees, chota sa chain. That's the immediate thought that I had. But then I realized that 3 days ago, I had 700 rupees worth of stuff at Starbucks without questioning that person. He said, "Sir, 750 is your total." I said, "Here is my card, take it." And
Yeah.
why am I asking this person?
Mm.
Like, 50 रुपए में क्या हो जाएगा? तुम 750 दे दिया तो 50 में तुम गरीब हो जाएगा? नहीं. और चीजों का वैल्यू बदल गया है यार. Like you can't still say that the दाल 300 रुपए का. अरे हाँ, things have changed. So, so that's what it is like, like my perception towards things kind of changed, and I became more and more sensitive to it in the last 4 or 5 years when I started exploring who I am, when I started seeing things around. So it's coming out all unintentionally, but it is all true me. मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि there must be some people like me who must be perceiving, the the world a little differently, away from the glamour and glitz and all.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll connect to what I'm saying. And if they do, then wonderful. Even if not, then this is just the way how I connect with myself.
Yeah. So something I've started to initiate a lot more recently is, so I've started to focus in on the thing I'm doing single-mindedly, if that makes sense. So before, what used to happen with me was pretty much, if I had something to eat, my meal, that would be there right in front of me, but I had, let's say, a YouTube video on, or I had something on which was there. So I wasn't entirely even concentrating on the meal I was having, because there was like two things on my mind, if that makes sense. And I'm sort of moving away from that thing now. So when I'm eating a meal right now, I'm only focusing in on that meal and trying to see why I like that, or whatever I'm doing when I'm thinking about eating it or eating it really. I think there's some power to that, if that makes sense, because I feel that being in the moment really, it's liberating in that sense, in some way, if that makes sense. Even if it's disciplining yourself to just focus in on one thing, that in itself allows you to not then have your mind scatter and think about, oh, what about this. I've come to think that if the things that are coming to your mind, which you think that you have to attend to, if they are of genuine importance, you will get to them, if that makes sense, and you will find a way to work on them. So there's this American author and Navy SEAL, like it's basically a part of the military there, named Jocko Willink. So he talks about this aspect. He says that discipline equals freedom, and people genuinely wouldn't associate those two things together,
Mm.
but I think it makes a lot of sense, and it's just in line in what you're saying basically, because not many people would then just stand at the metro and observe just the metro coming by and standing there and seeing just the ordinary things, because people are living in such a world where they have so many things going about. If they have, let's say, even a podcast in their ears when they're doing something, that in itself is taking away from the action that they're doing, isn't it?
No, I'm actually glad that you brought this up, because it's not every now and then where you hear
Yeah.
people talking about it. See, the thing is, this, in today's world, we are craving for attention. Everyone's craving our attention, and we are also craving someone's attention. And howsoever philosophical I may sound, that's true. I mean, that's one reason why I don't make those reels. You know, and if I be a, let me open up, like, okay, like on the topic of reels only.
Yeah.
I was trying to put myself like I'd not talk about it. See, the point is, what I feel that we as individuals, because of social media particularly, have lost complete touch of what life really is. ठीक है, हमें लगता है कि लाइफ हम ही जी रहे हैं, हम ही हैं. एंड देन सोशल मीडिया के थ्रू व्हेन यू सी, तो तुम्हें लगता है कि व्हाट दैट विंडो इज शोइंग यू इज व्हाट लाइफ इज.
Hmm.
Okay, so you really have to take a pause, like genuine pause, to realize that you are nobody in this entire universe. Okay, you are literally nobody. Okay, nobody cares about what you do except for the people who love you. That's it. It could be your parents, five friends, that's it. Like I said, 600 people follow me on Instagram. Okay, unless and until I am not a hotshot model or somebody who's like being half naked, nobody's liking my post.
Yeah.
Nothing, right? So it's all a matter of getting attention and how one thinks, that fuels them. And I see, seeking attention has been in the entire, like, it's not a today's concept. 70s, 80s, 60s में ही हो रहा है. बट पहले क्या होता था कि पहले कुछ लोगों को अटेंशन मिलता था, सबको नहीं मिलता था. आज सबके हाथ में वो पावर आ गई है. ठीक है. And people have somehow disconnected from real life, is what I feel. I'll give you an example. Me and my friend, we were walking, last year in December, in the streets of Pune over here, like a popular street, something like the college hub area where you see a lot of youngsters and folks messing around. And we just parked the car and we were walking towards the restaurant when we suddenly saw two girls just jumping in the air three times. And I'm like, what happened? What, like, why are they jumping in the air three times? And then it took us 2 seconds to realize there was a guy in front of them who was clicking some boomerang or some video, right? Their life, like, they are with their friends over there,
Yeah.
but they have forgotten. They feel that this boomerang is what keeps in their memory. So long story short, I'll tell you something. I think people will only disconnect with the social media and connect on these small moments when they realize the importance of these
Hmm.
moments.
Hmm.
Okay. For some people, it gets triggered within. They are conscious of their own self, that they start reading and they start developing a perspective, like you said, right? Others have to have an external trigger, that for them to realize that they are not the center of the universe and life ka kuch pata nahi hai bhai, aaj hai kal hai,
Ah,
which is true, right? So Shan Singh Rajput, such a big
yeah.
actor, but who's talking about him now? Like Arnab Goswami shouted about him for 6 months during the lockdown,
Yeah.
but nobody's talking. Neither you, neither I, nobody's talking about it. That's how life is. Like howsoever harsh and what it is, and I don't know if I have to call myself fortunate or not. Like I was in my first year of college when an incident happened in my college, and I became the key witness to an accident. And unfortunately, the kid involved in the accident passed away. So that was the first time I saw like a dead body very close to me. Okay, like so, and like in my house till now, also like everyone's there. So that was the first time I saw somebody, you know,
Pass
in
away.
that
Yeah.
position pass away. And because I was like one of the witness to the incident that happened, I was hounded by everyone. So I was in that atmosphere for a very long time. Like I was in the mortuary for a very long time. They called me to identify and do this thing, that thing. And I was just constantly thinking that this kid probably would have had a big future,
Hmm.
probably would have had very wealthy parents. I'm hypothetically saying, he could have had a lot of things around him, but when he went away, he didn't carry any of it. Probably the only thing he carried, which also we are not sure, are the memories of his life.
Yeah.
That also, if we believe in the concept of soul and atma and everything,
Hmm.
we can we can console ourselves that yeah, the life
Yeah.
that we are living is somehow getting passed
Somehow
on in
meaningful. Yeah.
some other, yeah, somehow in other dimension. And unfortunately, in my college life, these kind of incidents happened twice. So it just hit me very hard. And that was my external trigger, that just stay in the present, yeah, enjoy the present, because you are not going to take away the Instagram reels, you're not going to
Hmm.
take away the likes. It's just the memory that you build, the good life that you live, right? You can touch people's heart through these platforms, but don't mislead yourself that your life becomes this platform,
Yeah.
right? You should realize that, like, you should take out life and this structure around it. Like how like I think Matrix is the best example.
Yeah.
How Morpheus says that everything around you is built to give you a sense that you are a slave of the prison that you cannot smell, see,
Hmm.
or feel. It's a wonderful movie if you actually try to relate it to how things around
Yeah.
you are.
No, for sure.
And that's a very different level. I mean, I would recommend if somebody has not seen it. Sorry, I went way
No,
too
no, no.
like
I like these sorts of conversations.
philosophical.
No, that's what I keep reading all day. So this is fine. Just gets me
But I
another
think that's
perspective.
the but ईशान मेरे ख्याल से मुझे वही लगता है कि I think that's the reason.
Yeah.
Instances happen, we forget them so easily because everyone's craving our attention. We move on, we don't think about it, what it
Hmm.
means, and then then 10 years later we are having quarter life crisis, midlife
Yeah.
crisis, later life crisis. I'm not saying I didn't have it. Like I'm no saint here, I'm also a human. I've had it. I'm actually on a day to day basis thankful that I'm having these kind of experiences, because they are then getting on in my like a feedback mechanism, that I have to break out those patterns. I have to see how life it is,
Hmm.
how things are. Small things, like people are so impatient on the traffic signal. Yeah, क्यों? क्या होगा? Like, you are okay, you're probably exerting your authority here, but who cares?
Hmm.
You're just one person out of 7.5 billion people here. Who cares?
Yeah.
Nobody cares. And I'm telling you, like, all of this, like, it hit people in the lockdown, right? Why it happened is because we are always seeking something, like I said, attention,
Hmm.
distraction, people. But lockdown mein kya hua? Lockdown mein ab everyone's closed, so they have to live with their self. And what people realize is that it's very difficult to live with yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
The reason why a lot of people keep asking me, how was your lockdown? This thing. I've been living in a 1 BHK for almost 6 years alone. Okay. So when lockdown happened, it was an extension of me living in a. So I was completely fine with the solitude because I had come to terms on how you can live with yourself,
Mm,
how you can enjoy your own company. And मेरे को नहीं लगता यार, like today also, like a lot of my friends and everyone keep talking about कि girlfriend है, हमको life partner चाहिए. Sometimes I ask myself, क्यों चाहिए? Like why do I need somebody?
mm,
Do I genuinely need somebody? I don't know. Like one, and probably I will, but
mm.
I need to have a solid answer to that question,
Yeah.
because like everything except sex I can do on my own. Even that satisfaction can happen in some
Yeah.
form on my own.
Yeah.
So
No, for sure.
right, so and that's like sexual pleasures, keeping that and the philosophy of that completely aside, I think once you lose connection with the world and you focus on yourself is when you'll start asking these questions,
Yeah.
which is what most people don't do because it's scary.
Yeah,
It's scary,
exactly,
man.
exactly. It's very
It's
scary.
exceptionally scary.
Yeah.
See, I can say 10 things to you, and I can say, Ishan, you are a very bad person, you are this,
Huh,
you are that. The minute you tell me, I get so defensive. That's
huh.
a defense mechanism. Not everyone has the courage to look inside, yeah. And that's why when celebrities raise the point of depression and all, it's such a big deal. Had
Mm,
it been so easy for everyone to look inside and confront themselves and particularly their demons, then this wouldn't have been a big deal. There wouldn't have been a movement to talk about some of these things more normally, such some things like specifically things like depression.
yeah.
So I think, yeah, like and in some form I understand that it definitely in some part of the world the lockdown did impact, and I'm talking about the
Mm,
loneliness of it.
mm,
But I'm sure there are many people who would have got triggered from it, because there are also reports where counseling and psychological counseling sessions have increased. People have
yeah.
becoming more and more spiritually aware, which is a good thing, I think, for a collective conscious in the society. But the fact is, how they have to continue it. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
if they are
Yeah.
just thinking as that also as an escape route, okay, oh, okay, once the lockdown is done, then we'll be like, okay, what we were. Then again, you are getting trapped in the unconscious way of life.
I think there are several things to unpick here, but just starting off, something you touched upon. I think that is so important though, because people almost, as you said, they don't want to meditate on that thought that who they are, who they actually are, if that makes sense. So understanding the bare necessities that they actually require on a day-to-day basis, because so there's this productivity writer, and he's a computer scientist as well, so he's a really smart guy, Callum Newport. He's written like several books on these things like deep work, and social media and things like that. So he talks about this thing that if you take an abstention from whatever is the addiction that you have, be it alcohol, cigarettes, or social media for that matter, even you take it for like 30 days, 45 days, and then you just meditate on the thought of, because the things will come to you, what are the things that are meaningful to you, if that makes sense. And then when, let's say, those 30 days are over or 45 days are over, whatever the time limit you've set for yourself, you will then know how to use that addiction, and if you still need that addiction, if that makes sense. So for example, the both of us are content creators, right? So maybe I need Instagram because I simply need to post something about my show, and maybe more people would like it, and I would like it if more people watch my show or listen to my show, which is good for me. But then I should limit myself to that and not then go on to scrolling unnecessarily and getting and wasting a lot of time. So I think, but then you touched about it really well though, and and sort of, I talk in like really wavy ways. That's fine, I guess. But so you talked about this aspect that as well, right? So you try to question things in the something that Elon Musk calls first principles thinking, if that makes sense. So understanding, is it really necessary for you to have a relationship, or is it really necessary for you to, let's say, commute to work? Is it really so? Asking those things that people wouldn't ask, because it's almost culturally accepted that, yeah, you eat 3 times a day, you have a family, you do this, you do that, because everyone does it. So I feel, as you touched about it, really, I think if people spend more time with themselves, the answers would come to them, or they would find ways to get the answers. And if they get the answers, then they would have to act about it. And that's not good, is it? Because then you'll have to
That's
change your
it's
routine.
a Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's see, just knowing that there is a demon, like most, I'm sure 99% of the people know that what their flaws are. It's this entire cycle which you just mentioned, right? Around from knowing till acting, and
Hmm.
then bearing the repercussions of it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, so I'm almost touching 30 now, and for the last 3 4 years my parents have been like pushing so much about marriage. And even though, like, so they are to the extent that they are even saying that, society has opened up now, it's even legal, so they have been keeping hinting me कि, by if you have different inclinations. I said no. I said, okay, to answer your question, I am straight. To answer that question, I am straight. But you need to understand that I am seeking something else. It's not that my preferences are different,
Hmm.
that is why I'm delaying something or I have something to hide from you. But I'm trying to understand life in a very different form, because their parents probably did not give them that choice, right? Like they
Hmm.
got, they're like, भाई ये लड़का ये लड़की हमें पसंद है, शादी हो गई.
Bas.
आज भी होता है.
Yeah,
It's all
yeah.
about questioning, right? And see, it's all about, again, how secure you are. So there are a lot of people I know personally who project the image of masculinity. And for a very long time they did कि भाई ये तो ऐसा है, हम तो ऐसे हैं, ये तो ऐसा है. But when they struck the concept of loneliness, when
Hmm.
somebody was either thrown in the lockdown or somebody was sent to a different country altogether, living alone in a world where nobody speaks or eats your own language or food, you start realizing that, oh my god, I'm so lonely, I need somebody.
Hmm.
So it's all about how you perceive this thing and to what extent you are able to stretch it. It's not a simple game here. And when I am now approaching this age, then I have the extra pressure. Like everywhere, like wherever I go, whosoever I call, they're like, "Shadi kab kar rahe ho?" So some people, also get that the society ka pressure. Like it's not very easy. Yeah. It's
Hmm.
like it's not very easy. When I was going through my own spiritual journey and trying to understand the jobs which I did, like I had so much push even from my own parents. Like you would say कि अच्छा इन्होंने पैदा किया है, इन्होंने पाल पोस के बड़ा किया है, ये तो तुम्हारा अच्छा ही चाहते होंगे. But वो अच्छा चाहते हैं, like they want my betterment of me, but they are not thinking at the same level as I am. Like they are not probably as updated about कि nobody cares that if in 6 months you change a job, it's not 1980s or 1990s anymore. Like this is just like switching job has become like the new thing. बदलते
Yeah,
रहते हैं लोग
yeah.
आए दिन. तो वो चीजों के लिए you need to start building an ecosystem around you. That's what I start, like I fortunately like start building an ecosystem, taking more conscious choices. Maybe I've been through that process. Yeah, I would confront my parents about something, then go cry in my room, because after all, like they are elder to you, and
Yeah.
they have done so much for you. You don't want to disrespect them, but there is no way. Sometimes, like for me, there was no way. I had to raise my voice and like put it up forth that why are you not getting this? It's such a simple thing. Like you say that you operate from experience. Why is this not, you're not able to absorb this thing? But it's in that process only, and in this tearing apart and falling and confronting, taking feedback, everything, like it's a constant journey. And that is why living alone actually helped me as compared to the other way around. Because when I was staying with some friends and I would feel stressed, they'll be like, chal daru pine chalte hain. I probably didn't need daru at that time.
Yeah.
You're just throwing in me an atmosphere where there's no, more extra noise coming, and there's already noise within me. So I
Hmm.
need to let this noise out. So it was becoming like a simple, pressure equation. There is pressure inside, and you are giving extra outside. तो ये तो अंदर ही रह जाएगा ना. Like
Hmm.
atmospheric pressure is more than internal pressure. तो ये बाहर नहीं आएगा. तो बहुत जरूरी है that you build that ecosystem around you. It could be friends, family. I found solace in a few of my distant relatives, and fortunately, like with them, because they, even if they judge me, it wasn't a problem, but they knew what I was going through, so became
Hmm.
like a mix and match of everything. I found solace in a few of my friends also. Okay, they became very good support. So it's a very tough journey. It's a very tough journey.
No, there's something to that though. Like it's, I mean, it's annoying as well because like so Nietzsche talked about this. So he's this philosopher. He says that when you're growing up, it's like, because you picture your parents as gods almost, if that makes sense, because you in the way you're brought up, it's that they know what's best for you, so it's best to ask them and just go by their way. But then there comes a point, be it when you're 19, 20, in high school, first year college, doesn't matter, there is a point in every individual's life, I think, um, that you can't really go to your father really to ask for something, because he doesn't know maybe more than you do, if that makes sense. So you almost have to find ways to navigate that problem yourself. And he says, so sorry, not Nietzsche, I think Freud talked about this. So he said that that's the completion of when a boy becomes a man, if that makes sense, because you then are fending for yourself, you're trying to investigate for yourself and finding meaning in life. So yeah, I think there is something to that, man. And even when the things you are talking about, let's say, something I think about is, I think, I don't know if total abstention is the way to go forward as well, be it with anything, with the things we talked about, alcohol, cigarettes, social media, any addiction of that sort, really. I think, but having scarcity is really good though, because it's the same thing we touched about as well. So you gave the example of, let's say, three girls jumping in front of the camera to, I don't know, get some likes or whatever. But I feel that, so I've talked about this previously as well, that when I spend, let's say, a day on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, whatever, when I go back to bed at night, I don't feel that I've championed the day, I've fulfilled the day, I've done something productive, if that makes sense, right? But then if I've had a day where, let's say, I'm working on something, having conversations like these, and then at maybe during the day I check it once, because I do feel there is a lot to social media which is good as well. I just value the resource much more. My approach to it changes. I'm like, oh, why are people so toxic over here? Toxic's not even a word that comes to my mind when I go onto it, because I feel I have a totally different mindset. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I felt that yesterday. I've been feeling that since I think almost a week now. Because as of now, I'm on a leave from work,
Hmm.
and I'm doing my other things that I have planned, podcasts and few other things, taking care of health. But I'm not that swamped up with work that I am usually.
Right.
On my usual work day, I don't have time to look at the phone. But now I'm just looking at the phone. Like बेमतलब में like Instagram चल रहा है. And I did realize it last night that for the past 2-3 days I've been having a very massive headache. Okay. And that's why one reason why I was looking forward to this conversation, because I knew the way this conversation is going to go is actually going to put me back on track versus, throwing me off all over again. So, because I've been just, see, howsoever, like I said, through the pehle, that howsoever I talk about conscious living, it's not easy. See,
Yeah,
doing it once is one
for sure.
thing,
Yeah.
being consistent
Hmm.
about it is a separate thing. And you are, at the end, you are not God. If presumably there is a God, and we assume that that God is the perfect being,
Hmm.
you are not, and at least I am not. So there are bits and like highs and lows for me also. And probably the last 3 days were complete lows, where I was just looking at Instagram and I subconsciously got caught with the theory that people say that Instagram is just showing the happy pictures. And abhi jo main, the concept that I just spoke about, like marriage and everything,
Hmm.
and how I feel about it as a whole, it took me the 3-4 days of constant Instagramming and looking at honeymoon pictures of my friends, and people chilling and partying in Goa with their girlfriends, just made me realize, oh my god, am I making a mistake? So social media, that's why I said, like, social media, if not managed well, handled well, it has a very strong presence and strong influence in our lives, subconsciously mostly.
Right.
And this headache that I was having was subconscious. Yeah, matlab, it was not getting cured. I took a medicine, it was not getting cured. I had 2 cups of tea since morning, not getting cured. So the fact that it made me realize that, this is not an external phenomena. It's not happening in the physical part
Hmm.
of my brain. It's hitting me somewhere deep within, which the physical consumption of things is not helping me. But speaking with you here about these topics, having a more intellectual discussion or a one level deeper discussion actually made me feel better right
Hmm.
away in the first half an hour.
Oh.
Because now my subconscious is back again, and the discussion we are having is reminding me of the fact that what I actually stand for and
Hmm.
what my principles were. So
Yeah.
these highs and lows are like that instantaneous. Like they don't have to be like a momentarily phase of 1 month, 2 month. No,
Yeah.
they like it happened. I woke up, I told my cook when she came at my house that Didi sir fat raha hai mera, main kya karu. And within the half an hour of a conversation, I realized that it went away simply because of what we were speaking,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So, and had this been a very different conversation, probably we would have been touched so many things.
Mhm.
Uh, it would have gone very differently. But
Yeah.
I'm appreciating the fact that I'm speaking to somebody who's so well read. You are kiting examples of those books, right? So basically, yeah, you're the kind of person I would like to talk to, and you are aligning more with who I actually am versus
Mhm.
what the world is projecting on the
Yeah.
phone, right? So it's that instantaneous, and I do connect with what you had just said. Yes.
So there's another thing though, isn't there? Abhay? Like you touched about it in some sense, but like the fact that, for example, if you're having so another thing I go into conversations is that I have an open. So as I said previously as well, so I have a few questions I'd like to ask you, but then I don't want to limit myself to that. If we don't even, if I don't even come to one of those questions, I'm fine. And if we go on to talk about something else, that's totally fine by me. What I see happen more often than not, and this is the reason I primarily started my podcast, was I got fed up with the traditional media because I felt that they were feeding you, like you talked about it as well, that who's to say that India isn't ready for mature content or isn't ready for intellectual content of that sort. So this notion that so we have a 30-minute newspaper, a news publication show, so we can only circle in 8 minutes here, but you have to read from this, and it has to be it has to be all in proper manner, because that's the only way the attention span lasts, or whatever metrics that they look at. I don't find that compelling as much, because I find things like honest conversations, people I referenced before we started the conversation, Joe Rogan and all these people, just having honest conversations with people and actually cutting the BS, if that makes sense, and understanding where they're coming from, because I think that really matters, and people actually resonate with those people much more. So be it anyone really, because I feel even if you're people like Mark Zuckerberg, or what have you, that's another reason I sort of like the Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey a little better than Mark Zuckerberg, because I think he's not putting up an act, if that makes sense. He's, as far as I can tell, closer to what he is in person as he projects on, let's say, the interviews and the things he does. I don't know. So that's another thing that even I think that even if I'm putting content out, that's something I'm cautious about, that I don't fall into the trap of, I don't know, just thinking that if am I politically correct, or am I this, am I that, will people like me, will not. So that, I don't know. I'm rambling a lot.
Huh. Matlab, you don't want like, so there's a lot of curation outside. You got it
Uh,
exactly right.
hmm.
And even the fact that you are saying that the Twitter CEO projects differently versus what he might be in person, he's not your next door neighbor. If I'm like, is he? No, right?
No.
I'm guessing. Huh. So your perception of him is also
Exactly, yeah.
by what you are reading. So
Hmm.
बहुत simple सी बात है. See, I'll tell you, like, everything is a projection. ठीक है? And I'm not going philosophical.
The
I'm going to give
Upanishads.
like, huh, it's like I said, those opening lines on when Neo meets Morpheus for the first time and Morpheus explains what the Matrix is. They're
Hmm.
absolutely right. The red pill, the blue pill concept is simple. The choice
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
make in life, either you live this way or you live that way, you have to bear consequences.
Hmm.
If you live an unconsciously driven life, then don't blame that life is happening this way. ठीक है, वैसा चल रहा है. Everything around you, the media is curated. Yeah, that is what you have to realize. You will never be able to find, you know, at least in the mainstream, beat any field, beat any field. I'm not talking about media or blaming the news or any industry, so to say. You go and pick up mainstream books that you want to read, you will probably, if you're seeking something else, you will not probably find it there, because you know they are writing what is being जो बिकता है. जैसा there was a concept where Bollywood is now so much of talking about feminism and all, and in fact the entire world about the movements and feminism. But our own Bollywood, abhi 15 साल पहले, like what were they doing with the item songs and all?
Yeah.
That's what. And they would simply say कि भाई जो दिखता है वो बिकता
Uh, uh.
है ना? So bluntly they are putting that concept out.
Hmm.
It's the same thing anywhere. Why do you think Indian Idol is on today? Why do you think Big Boss is still on today? We people who might be like educated, or who have like, I'm putting everything in double quotes, that who have a different view to
Hmm.
life, or
Hmm.
we subjugate something as compared to others. We feel Big Boss is not fun. But do you know, like, ho sakta hai tier 2 family in some
Yeah.
village,
Yeah.
uske liye this is amazing entertainment. We have
Hmm.
two people bickering on the TV, creating conspiracies. The reason why things are still on, you have to understand, is because everyone's there to make profit. So everything has to be curated. Whatever is being consumed for the mass media, masses. Simple.
Hmm.
You cannot give something which is totally uncurated to a lot of chunk of people, because it's a natural human tendency to try to make some sort of order in chaos.
Yeah. Yeah.
ठीक है, ये बहुत सीधी बात है. I won't go far. Like in my office, I have observed this. I have done that many times. I have done that many times, that I had a very different thought process in mind, but purely for the sake of maintaining the decorum,
Hmm.
I had to say something else. Like, for instance, even in this conversation, I opened up on the concept of reels. You spoke to me about reels in the first 20 minutes, but I became more vocal after 45 minutes,
Yeah.
right? And because in the first instance, I was trying to,
Gauge where the
maintain
conversation's
that,
going or what. Yeah.
yeah, and maintain the decorum. Oh, I don't
Hmm.
want to go this way. But then when the conversation took a natural tone, I opened up. So most of these large scale institutes, people independently also, it's all curated.
Yeah.
It's all curated. Very very few people are open to
Hmm.
putting their flaws. And see, the one more thing that is to remember is that you are seeing Joe Rogan right now. With no offense to him, or anyone who's producing similar content, I would rather want to know what was your first episode, or what was the
Hmm.
first thing that you did while coming in the industry. To what I recollect, I think Joe Rogan was
He's
a
a
stand-up
comedian.
comic.
He's a comic. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he's a comic, and then he eventually, became popular with his
Yeah.
podcast
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
So my question to Joe Rogan would be that, can you show me the first stand-up material that you wrote?
Hmm.
Was it as true to what you had everything in your mind,
Hmm.
or was it somehow curated, probably to the show that you did, to the audience that you did, to the scenarios that were happening, right? So वही है, like, कहीं ना कहीं not everyone can be true every 24 hours
See,
7.
but Abhay, I
That
totally
level of
agree.
curation will
Huh.
be there.
No, I totally agree. And I think that you touched about the right words, like order and chaos. Always, those two will always have that sort of, I don't know what's the right word to use here, that they will always be in contention, if that makes sense. It's just that you have to walk the path between order and chaos and maintain that. Okay. So maybe in the show I'm creating, order could be in the sense that, is my show hygienic? Is it good that people would actually like to listen to it? And maybe the chaos element could be that, okay, I'm open to exploring ideas and those sorts of things. My frustration, and maybe I'm wrong here, but then my frustration with the traditional media and many of the, let's say, institutional things, that the way we consume it, is that they prioritize one over the other, if that makes sense. So they probably prioritize order over chaos. Maybe to say that, oh, we've been doing, let's say, the show for 25 years, we know that we get these numbers every day, so what's to say that we won't be getting that for the next 25 years or whatever. So we might as well just keep continuing, because why would the viewers want to know if we want to change anything, if that makes sense. So but yeah, maybe that's just me, because I have then uh, I've gotten the opportunity to listen to other people talk about it, and enrich myself into other contents, other books, other things, see other ways of looking at things, and that's why maybe my frustration is coming here to say that, why are they still doing it in the way they are?
Yeah, see, they will do what, like I said, they will do what serves best for everyone. Okay,
Hmm.
so let me take another example. And without going political, any government makes a policy mostly keeping in mind that, let's take the example of the LPG subsidy policy. Okay. Now, the place where I live, I do not buy a cylinder anymore. Why? Because most of the new constructions that are happening, they have a tie-up, and in most of the tier one or tier two cities now, the pipeline gas service is at least getting established in the new constructions that are happening.
Hmm.
Does it impact me? No. Like, I don't have to buy a cylinder, and okay, even if I have to buy a cylinder, I'm okay to give up the subsidy, because TK, I can afford it, right? So the laws, everything's made keeping in mind the masses, yaar, okay?
Hmm.
And it will always be that. It will
Yeah.
always be that. I mean, be it laws, be it content, be it anything. I mean, like I spoke about podcast, why can't we do something different? I've been asking that question since the first time I saw, I think I saw the movie Udan.
Hmm.
उड़ान मैंने देखी थी 2010 में in my first semester after the tech fest they were just screening it in the auditorium and I was just saw and I'm like why can't they make more movies like this?
Yeah.
That was the first instant and moment I realized that there is a different form of content which
Yeah.
people are not consuming. From that day till today, I have not seen a single Salman Khan movie because I then realize I connect more with what the non-commercial cinema is.
Hmm.
Okay, and even before Nawazuddin Siddiqui and Pankaj
Pankaj
Tripathi and
Tripathi,
all of
yeah.
these, they all coming to mainstream. वो भी mainstream से popular हुए हैं भाई उनका
Hmm.
nobody I'm sure
Exactly. Huh.
even today when people give references of Pankaj Tripathi nobody is talking pre Gangs of Wasipur work
Yeah. Yeah.
because that's how people are like what
Hmm.
made you popular becomes the thing that you're known for, right?
Hmm.
So tomorrow let's say if this podcast becomes viral and if then people will judge you and me based on this conversation.
Yeah.
Very few will go and try to see our history that what brought us over here. That's how it is. Simple. That's how it is. And to be in a position where people go and unearth your history in Indian context you need to be like बहुत ऊपर
Huh.
बहुत ऊपर because हमारी mentality हमारी सोच ही वो है like Baichung Bhutia said it very wonderfully in I think many years ago. He spoke about that when he was a kid I think 11, 12 years old he didn't have money to buy shoes football studs to
Football
play
boots. Yeah.
football.
Yeah.
So he had to like struggle quite a lot and he had to his dad has to pay a lot of money and today he has Nike or some big brand as a sponsor. So he put it out very upfront that India needs to change the way thinking that people need to be given resources when you identify talent, not when they become successful. Because if
Right.
successful ho gaya, now
Tab
Baichung
to
Bhutia
they,
doesn't
yeah.
need he is the captain. He can buy his own shoes.
Yeah.
But back then he desperately needed it. If you look at Lewis Hamilton, similar kind of story, but they are coming from a different context. Like in the West, it's a very natural thing to scout talent
Hmm.
from the high schools or the ground level up
Grassroots.
and then
Yeah. Yeah.
nurture it and nurture it. Partially because they have their different systems, they don't have population and they are a little more developed than us. But that's what the mentality is. Simple. Like our own parents don't crib about us. यार अगर हम 85 की जगह मतलब 90 की जगह 85 लेके आ जाते हैं तो मतलब I remember my parents telling me that you haven't earned the scholar badge which everyone should get. How does that scholar badge define my life, what I live now? But ठीक है, scholar badge नहीं मिला, scholar badge नहीं मिला. And then I have been compared to all the people around me have scholar blazer and badge.
Hmm.
I don't have it. But that's just how the conditioning is. So simple thing, like my recommendation to anyone who thinks this way would be, okay, you are getting frustrated. That means it's a good sign. Take it as a good sign that you do not like what is being consumed,
Hmm.
so just go and consume something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are wonderful people who are still pursuing theater the way it should be, even though many of the theaters go, empty handed, but they still do. You
Hmm.
look at them, you want to see genuine acting, go see non commercial cinema, boost that up. And I'm
Yeah.
actually glad that's the OTT platform also. Everyone's watching what is being projected on the banner because,
Hmm.
like, a movie like Student of the Year was Prime was like Amazon was like bombarding people because Prime spent so much, like Amazon spent so much in buying the rights. They want people to watch it. But is it for me? Is it
Is
a
it
movie
watchable?
that I would like to watch? No, there is a
Yeah.
movie called Amal, Amal.
Okay.
It's one of the lesser known movies on Amazon Prime, and that's what I watch. And you'll realize the sophistication of non-commercial cinema. You'll realize that Nasiruddin Shah ka true acting kya hai. Like,
Hmm.
we only know him through
I'm
Wednesday.
a
Like
big
whenever,
Nasruddin fan myself, man. He's such.
so most of the like I said, what makes them put in the glamour is what becomes the starting point for everyone to think. So
Right.
when I speak to anyone about Nasiruddin Shah, everyone knows Wednesday because that's the commercial
Uh,
cinema through which a single
I was
a
thinking more
common man.
Sparsh because like I loved him in. Have you seen Sparsh? Yeah.
I've seen Sparsh. So you're probably the first guy who's actually said something else. I always talk about Amal because that movie for me was Amal mein jo unka role tha, the
Hmm.
way, and there was this one piece of song that also which he sung. I was amazed by how such a senior actor can bring it out. A life, that the role and character and everything. So that's the whole thing, यार. I think eventually वही है कि आप अपना रास्ता ढूंढिए, उस पे चलिए, and then don't worry too much. You know, people will come and say, "Oh, what movie are you watching? This is,
Yeah,
not
so it almost
okay,
becomes,
fine."
it almost becomes like, I don't know if it's the right thing, but they want to label you, if that makes sense, right? Because they want to
Yeah,
say,
it's okay.
this is your type of music, this is your type of movies, this is your type of books. So maybe you're this
See,
kind of person.
that's what I've realized, Ishan. Like the best way to live is live and let live.
Hmm.
ठीक है यार. Am I stopping you? Have I held your hand ever if you want to watch any SRK or Salman Khan movie? No.
No, yeah.
You want to watch, you invite me. If I like the genuine plot of it, I would come with you. It's not like I'm anti Salman or anti Shahrukh or anti commercial cinema. I am all, what I'm seeking is not just, bland
Hmm.
entertainment.
Hmm.
मतलब सी वो भी एक है. कई लोग मेरे को ऐसा बोलते हैं कि यार हम लोग जाते हैं ना, हमको बस चिल मारने का है.
हाँ, सोचना नहीं
तो
है.
सोचना नहीं है. ठीक है यार, तुम द वे, नथिंग रॉन्ग इन इट.
Yeah,
यू
yeah.
वांट टू परस्यू यू वांट टू परस्यू लाइफ एंड एवरीथिंग that way. I feel that whatever I consume, be it 2 hours of cinema, should be worth it.
Yeah.
It should
Hmm.
add some value to me. It should move me from within. It should, like, I should feel something from it, right? I'll give an example. I'm not kidding. See, I never watched a single Marvel movie. I thought, अरे ये क्या comic
Same, I
movie है.
haven't.
I never watched it up until last year in December. You won't
Okay.
believe.
Okay.
ठीक है. Sorry, what am I saying? Up until Avengers Infinity War came out.
Okay.
And Infinity War, if you ask my friend, was a big task for my friends to convince me कि चल देख के आते हैं. I simply went because the ticket was free. Like the
हाँ,
person who did not show up,
ठीक
they're
है.
like, "There's a free ticket. आजा क्या करेगा?" I said, "Okay." In that moment is where I loved it. And I'm like, wow, this is beautiful storytelling. While people were loving it for the comical aspect
Hmm.
of it, I am
Hmm.
like, how can you tell so many stories so wonderfully in such a small span of time? And then I saw Endgame, and then I was blown away. I'm like, I have to watch these movies because they are mentally so stimulating to me.
Hmm.
And then is when I took my friend's, password and ID, and I went to Hotstar and I watched every single thing, and I was blown away. So it's not like I'm anti. I'm just like, the minute I realize it has something that motivates me, moves me from within, I will just go and consume it. Toy Story. I had never seen Toy Story 1, 2, 3 ever. Not because I didn't want to. I just never thought कि क्या है, देखें क्या है. I saw Toy Story 4 for the first time. I almost cried at the end. Okay. And I was like, if something can move me to that extent,
Yeah.
I'm probably looking at this thing with a very different lens. So I removed that lens. I watched all the Toy Stories. I went back and I saw, and I realized the concept, the mastery of things,
Yeah,
which
we
is there.
also have these preconceived notions, right? With whatever, with Marvel or these things that, acha, so because I've seen posters, I've seen this, that, I'm getting an inclination that it's going to be in this way only. Like we almost set these things out for ourselves now that, but then yeah, like the way I look at it is that it's very difficult to go through all movies because that's impossible, right? So
Yeah.
the manner is, if there is a if there's something that someone's recommended to me, I will genuinely watch it. I will not read the reviews of it. I will just simply watch it or read the book, whatever we're talking about, and try to make sense of it in my own way. And then try to make an honest thing, however much that's possible, right? Because everyone has their biases, everyone has their thing. Like, however much I'm
True.
able to do that, I'll try to do that. Because yeah, because who's to say, like, just because IMBD put it as 2, it's going to be bad, or whatever the metric be, right? Like, that's, but I totally understand though, with the things you have talked about, that you sort of do have to then, I feel you do have to sort of rate content, because just for the efficiency point of view, because then more and more people will then be able to then scan through it. Achha, this is 4 star, maybe they should be good. So it'll be easier to then scan through the content to watch next, perhaps. I don't know.
That's true. Yeah. Everyone has their own preferences. See, I
Hmm.
have a Netflix account. If you see what I watch, I have watched, I think, 10, 15 documentaries only on World War II. I like it. Abhi
Yeah.
I saw Money Heist like last week,
Huh.
which was like hyped upon, like, which
Mhm.
is wonderful. It's a good show,
Mhm.
but it has been hyped upon for like ages. Money
Right.
Heist and so many others. I've still not seen few other content because theek hai, like, when I'm in the mood, I will go and watch it because,
Mhm.
like I said, I am a very strong believer that what you consume is what you become, right? So if I'm not in the right moment, if I'm mentally not right in the right space of it, I don't want to consume something just for the heck of it.
Right.
तो
Right.
be it podcast, be it anything, कुछ भी है, मतलब नहीं करता मैं. Like I like to disconnect from time to time, keep the earphones on, listen to the surroundings, and you just have to live with it. Yeah, ठीक है. I have friends who are completely opposite of me. So we don't ठीक है, we tag along on completely different elements. We are very
Mm.
close friends, yet we have different, extremely like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, high-ended opinions. So and that too, not just on movies and content, like even in life. But
Yeah.
we are very good friends. Like, so it's very, so I think our friendship can be a very good example of how, you know, how the right wing folks and left wing folks should eventually
Yeah.
live together on their political views also, to that extent. तो वही है, like ठीक है, he is comfortable
uh,
the minute, but he was the one who invited me to you know, Avengers Infinity War,
Infinity War.
and he's like कि चल आजा. I'm like चल ठीक है, देख लेते हैं क्या है.
Yeah.
But I had this preconceived notion, अरे यार इसने बोला है तो ये तो कुछ ऐसे ही होगा, ये तो बचकाना ही
Mm.
देखता है, अरे इसको
Mm.
क्या है. ठीक है, sometimes bubbles also keep bursting. So
Yeah.
वही है यार, I think bubble में जब तक नहीं हो, like
Mm.
it should not be like, oh no, I'm just like, I am just going to see this. You should be open. ठीक है. For that matter, I've seen Bajrangi Bhaijaan. I've not seen
Mm.
Chennai Express and all. I've seen Bajrangi Bhaijaan. I liked bits of it, but then I
Yeah.
realized that it could have been probably condensed in different
Mm.
forms, because
Mm.
now when I've seen what other forms of cinema could be, I start looking at things very differently. So I remember then when Dunkirk came out, you know,
Oh.
a lot of people simply went there, ke, oh, it's a Chris Nolan movie, so Dunkirk,
Mm.
Dunkirk, Dunkirk. I could appreciate it to the next level. The kind of cinematic shots that were taken, the color, you know, the picturization, like, and the coloring shades, or how it brought you back in that zone of World War II. Because I have seen so much of non-commercial cinema that I could sense that Nolan has taken a lot of cues from that artwork and actually put in there the
Yeah.
camera angles, where it is and how it is. So the storytelling that you do, I am more fond of the storytelling concept of it. आई फ्रैंकली डोंट केयर कि उसमें फिर अब बड़ा स्टार है या कोई
Mm.
अपकमिंग बंदा है. अगर वो एक सर्टेन बढ़िया तरीके से एक स्टोरी टेलिंग वाले एलिमेंट को कैप्चर करते हैं, आई कंटेंट, आई वॉच इट. दैट्स व्हाट माय, व्हाट यू से, डेफिनेशन इज नाउ. But I can be entertained out of it. I can feel emotional out of it. I can be anything out of it. Till the line there is some grassroots storyline to it, and some sort of like hygiene. मतलब एकदम ही
Mm.
ऐसा नहीं कि बस कैमरा उठाया और सेल्फी लेना चालू कर दिया. Not like that. But वैसा है वो. And I think we have to own it also. See, there will always be people also, like I said, that humans have this habit of, you know, finding
Tribalism,
modern
basically.
skills. They also have a habit of classifying everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why you see साइंस ने A to Z पूरा अर्थ क्लासिफाई कर रखा है.
Huh.
ठीक है, प्लांट किंगडम, एनिमल किंगडम, फिर ये, फिर वो, माइक्रोब्स, ये वो, हर चीज क्लासिफाई कर दिया. ठीक है. So this is natural human tendency. Like they'll be like,
Mm.
oh, you like this? Oh no, I don't want it. ठीक है, it's okay. यार. You will always. What I realized was that I never knew I liked theater so much, and nobody in my circle actually wanted to go theater, do theater or watch theater. But the minute I started going to, like, I attended this one show over here long time back in 2017. I found a lot of people. I made friends in the
Yeah.
auditorium,
Yeah.
and then they became my friends every time there was like a big show or a small theater production that was coming into town. I'm like, हाँ यार सही है, ठीक है, and it's okay. I mean, the movie Dear Zindagi did not do
Mm.
very well, but
Mm.
that's one of the best movies. I mean,
Mm.
उसके क्लोजिंग स्टेटमेंट में ही वो ये कहता है कि सारे रिश्तों का बोझ एक रिश्ते पे क्यों डाल रहा है. Why are you expecting your girlfriend to come with you in every aspect, or your boyfriend to celebrate everything? भाई, you can have like कॉफी पीने के लिए एक दोस्त, you know,
Mm.
घुसपुस बातें करने के लिए एक अलग रिलेशन, इंटीमेट होने के लिए एक अलग रिलेशन को हो सकता है ना. आदमी अलग सोच कर सकता है. तो वही है. आई थिंक दैट कॉन्सेप्ट इज व्हाट पीपल यूजुअली टेंड टू फॉरगेट, एंड इसलिए रिलेशनशिप्स में भी स्ट्रेन आते हैं यार इवेंचुअली. लोग
Mm.
वही एक्सपेक्ट करके बैठे हैं कि नहीं, ईशान इज माय गुड फ्रेंड, ही शुड डू एवरीथिंग. अरे
Yeah.
no, he Ishan likes something else, I like something else. We are individuals.
Yeah.
We agree on some things. Doesn't mean
Mm.
that we have to always stick to that and do
So
that.
yeah. Yeah.
I have two examples. Like, I have a childhood friend of mine, and you won't believe it, Ishan. Like, we are so aligned even from a metaphysical perspective that sometimes whatever's happening in my life, if I'm going through a breakup, he's also having a hard
Oh
time
wow.
with somebody who he likes. Okay. Or if I am having, you know, some love or something else in my life, promotion or something, he's also kind of having similar thing.
Oh
But then
wow.
we disagree politically itna zyada कि like we can't stay in the same room, but
Right.
yet we can stay in the same room
Hmm.
because that's how like we are, and sometimes I feel ki, yaar, how am I friends with this guy? Like we are like diametrically opposite. But then I realize that you can be friends because it's just one of the 10 things that we disagree on.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
are nine things that we do agree, and which is completely allowed. ऐसा नहीं है यार कि आप नहीं कर सकते.
No, and
तो कई
that's
कई लोग भूल
huh.
जाते हैं यार वो सारी चीजें.
No, that's the great thing though, right? Like that's what you have to understand, that be it whatever, as you said, politics, relationships, any sort of ideology you may have, and there's another person who disagrees with it, just hear him out or hear the other individual out, make your own take on it, and then just, yeah, I don't think there should be any problem. Because yeah, I mean, so we keep talking about this whole thing, right? Like I brought up tribalism. I think it's with everything right now, and not, I wouldn't only say in India, it's like worldwide pretty much. Like the
Hmm.
fact that people almost want people to conform to the way they think, uh, because they feel that, and this is at least my take, obviously I can be wrong, I feel that people who almost think in that manner, and this is the prominence of cancel culture as well, it's the fact that their chain of thought is supreme, and that anyone who even thinks of moving to the right or the left, let's say in a political spectrum or what have you, is short sighted in that sense, and it's their duty to almost inform them that, oh look, Ishan, you're wrong, maybe this is the way to go. And and sometimes they wouldn't even listen to the other person because they've already made their mind up. and
Yeah.
sometimes and sometimes it's not a conscious thing, it's so subconsciously driven into them, that that's the ideology that they move into conversations with. Acha, he is a heterosexual man, so he will obviously have this preconceived notion about these things. So why do I even have to have a conversation? Which is, yeah, that's problematic in my opinion.
See, we are all conditioned, and it's worldwide the same thing. We are all conditioned to grow. Like you very rightly said, that up until a very long time, when we are growing up in our
Hmm.
formative years, we look at our parents as the
Gods,
entire
pretty much,
entity
yeah.
for everything, right?
Huh.
Uh, for advice, for help, for everything. Even what we want to be, we say that I want to
Hmm.
be like my dad as
Yeah.
my role model, right? So for a very long time those conditionings happen, and it's very difficult to break out of them,
Yeah.
like it's and that is where the entire matrix analogy, so sorry I'm bringing that up again, but
No,
that's true.
you keep talking about the matrix. Do you think we're living in the matrix? Because you talk
Of
about
course we
everything's
are.
percent.
Of course we are. Of course we are. We are probably. It's true.
So you
I'm gonna.
you believe in a simulation, that we are living in a simulation.
No, 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 not that way. Not that way.
Okay.
I'm not
Okay.
taking. I'm not taking Elon's theory of simulation and all. Okay. I am simply saying there's this person called Aaron Ebke,
Hmm.
and there's a video of him on YouTube which says how to get rid of ego. Okay,
Okay.
and all he's saying is that there is an analogy of what the Matrix movie is trying to say versus how we feel in our everyday life. Okay, so if in the first part of the Matrix, the first series is entirely about Neo. Somebody is telling Neo that you have the capability. I believe in you. There are some people who don't because he hasn't proven himself. There is one guy called Morpheus who believes in him in some way because
Hmm.
he has the prophecy, and then he himself doesn't know whether he is capable of being the game changer or not. But by the end of it, there is this scene in the subway where uh, you know Neo stops running away from the Smiths, the anti elements, and then there's this there's this pause, and then everyone's wondering why Neo is not running away from the threat that is there, and Morpheus simply says he's beginning to believe. If you take just this first 5 minutes of Aaron Ebke's video, you'll realize that's what exactly life is. I'm not talking about simulation. I'm simply saying there are people who say something about you, who have a notion about you. There is you, like how I said, right? How can people love my voice? But then it took me some conscious acceptance. Maybe they can. Maybe they do. Why would somebody lie? So once I started to believe in it, then I start living that thing. And then is where success or failures or whatever the paths are, they lead to. There will always be extra elements. There will always be somebody who will believe in you, and you will keep wondering, yeah, why does that person believe in me? ये ऐसा तो हो ही नहीं सकता. So they are all analogies of what real life is. The thing is that usme, like, he cannot, had he spoken the way I had spoken, it would have become like a preachy movie. So he
Hmm.
put it in a very different form. But it's all the same thing. When I realized how close Matrix is to real life after watching that video, I went back and watched the movie all over again,
Yeah.
and it just blew my mind. The concept of red pill, blue pill, simple. He says very clearly, if you take this pill, your life will completely change.
Hmm.
Whatever you believe will not be the same. You have to conform to a new reality. If you take this pill, you will go back to what you were doing.
Hmm.
Conscious living, like you said, making these conscious choices around what movie I want to watch, and will I feel, will I feel belittled if I am not part of the larger group?
Right.
Am I
Yeah.
comfortable watching this kind of thing? Am I comfortable listening to this kind of thing? Am I okay living alone? These are questions of the red pill. If you answer them and live them, you are living a very different life, which is very
Hmm.
different from what you would have taken from the blue pill or whatever that pill is. So there is an easy way out, which is living in the conditioning of what everyone's saying, that you do this, you do that, you do this, you do that. You get tagged, that way. And of course, there's a very different way of living. And it's also mentioned in, the Atlas Shrugged, a book by Ayn Rand. And
Hmm. Oh
she
yeah,
puts it
yeah.
the concept of prime movers. She says that 10% people who are prime movers and 90% who are secondary movers, who run on the energy of prime movers.
Hmm.
And if you if you go one level deep, you'll realize these things are true. They have been simplified and put together for us to consume, but they have a very different meaning to things. See, a lot of people come to me and say, they come to me and say that, oh, how well you are doing in your job, and how are you able to do this podcast and so many things. And it's very difficult to explain to them. They lose interest after a minute when I start going about it, because I made some choices which nobody expects me to do. I
Yeah.
mean, नहीं करता कोई, नहीं करता मैं. I have given up some of, like, I've taken risk to the extent that sometimes they have come on to even to my life, कि लगता है यार अच्छा ये रिस्क ले लिया, अब इसमें तो लाइफ का रिस्क आ गया, लेकिन लिया वो रिस्क. तो how will you explain it to somebody कि that is the path that you have chosen, and like if you have to be in my position, probably you have to do that or
Yeah.
something else. So it will always be that, and I think the strength lies, our strength lies in the fact that we um, consciously accept who we are and go about living that way. If there are, while keeping a feedback mechanism always open. One thing that I always have is, if even after this call, anywhere somebody comes and says, hey, you said this thing wrong, or you did this thing wrong, I'm always open to feedback and I always work on it. How do I know this? I can give an example. I released the episode Namak Kam, which I spoke about the polio story. The particular section which I didn't want it to be preachy, but I had a writer's block, so I just went on giving a lot of gyan. But I didn't want it to be. That's not what I
Hmm.
want my
Hmm.
listener. I'm not the kind of person to unnecessary gyan de raha hai, bina puche. After 1 week of its release, I was going. I think I was buying some groceries is when an alternate plot hit me. कि अरे यार इसको ऐसे बोल देते हैं. I came back. I edited the script. I re-recorded the episode and I re-released it without, and cutting that all that preachy thing with the new version of it. So it doesn't matter. Like for me, it's gonna be there. It's a digital thing. It's gonna be there for
Yeah.
ages.
Yeah.
So 1 week, 5 days doesn't matter. I
Yeah.
got some feedback
Hmm.
from within that I didn't want it to be preachy. Made a correction, quickly done. I've done this numerous times on the podcast, and I keep doing that on my on a daily basis also. So it's a
Well,
tough choice. Right?
yeah.
It's going to be frustrating, but at the end, it's all about, you know it's just one life and how you want to live. I feel more comfortable today when I don't pray, trust me, versus when my parents used to say रोज हनुमान चालीसा पढ़ो सुबह. नहीं होता था. With no respect to anyone, मेरे को नहीं, I never found solace in that. Right? I never found solace in that. And today, when I believe more in myself, I have a
Right.
better understanding of myself, I know that reading Hanuman Chalisa will not get this work done. Probably that can, mostly that thing can do is calm me down. But after so many years of introspection, I've realized कि वो भी नहीं होता है, because that has a subconscious relation to how my parents used to use religion very differently.
Hmm. Hmm.
मतलब मेरे, अगर तुम पंडितों के घर में रहे हो पूरा दिन हर चीज के लिए, you blamed God and you supported God on everything, and you never took an action on any of the misses, then you know you can either be on the extreme that you also start living that life के भगवान ही हमें बचाएगा, or you can be on the extreme कि यार भगवान कुछ नहीं है, ठीक है, इतना पूजा करके देख लिया कुछ नहीं होता, माँ बाप को देख लिया पूजा करते हुए कुछ नहीं होता, एक्शन लेने से काम होता है, बिकॉज भगवान होंगे स्वर्ग में, धरती पे तो हम ही हैं. So I believe more in action than that way, you
Right.
know. So if I'm feeling sad, I will probably not read Hanuman Chalisa. Somebody else might will. If I'm feeling sad, I'll start doing something that makes me happy. I'll do something. I'll get physical. I'll cook. I'll read. I'll do something that genuinely makes me happy. तो और अब मैं उसमें कंफर्टेबल हूँ. अब अगर कोई मुझे बोले यू आर एन एथीस्ट, ठीक है यार, इट्स ओके, आई एम नॉट आर्ग्यूइंग विद यू यार, इट्स ओके.
See,
लाइफ
but
इज टू
then
शॉर्ट टू आर्ग्यू विद पीपल.
see, but then maybe like I don't know, maybe I sort of disagree here, but like I think then maybe then that's your how would I say? Then that's your conceptualization of a higher thing that you're
ओके ना.
aiming at now. Oh, so that's fair enough.
हाँ.
Like that's fair enough. Like if because the thing with
Yeah.
me is because I don't understand when people say what God is, right? Because I don't think anyone can really put a finger on it. Like to even say if anyone is an atheist or is religious, like I don't know if that's even possible for us to conceptualize. Like that's even in our wiring, if that makes sense. Like
हाँ देखो even
it's like it's like would we ever get to know that we're inside a simulation, right? Like will it ever come that kabhi ka koi error ka kuch button aa jayega ki hamare samne, oh the game has stopped or something.
आता
I
है,
don't.
आता है. See, the thing is, what you are referring to simulation, like I said, right? You are
But
referring to when.
it could be put forward in any such thing, right? It could be put forward in a religious context as well. Like how would we? I don't know if that's conceptually possible for us to know if there is something of that sort.
I would say, see, it's all again my opinion. It's all independent driven यार, ठीक है. मुझे पता नहीं कि larger conscious में हम क्या करेंगे, because like I said, a lot of things when the mob or a lot of people are involved, perceptions and things can sway away, ठीक है. You don't see the entire world sitting in Sadhguru's ashram or the entire world at Sri Ravi Shankar's feet, right? There are few people who want something. They got something from what these guys are saying. They align to it. They find peace and solace, and they're approaching it that way. Now, you and me are nobody to say, "Okay, this is wrong, that is
Yeah,
right."
exactly. Yeah.
Unfortunately, with religion, which is now such an embedded concept for thousands of years, it's become that way, right? Okay, this is wrong, that is right. उसमें भी वही है कि मैं वहां पे ज्यादा आर्ग्यू नहीं करूंगा, ठीक है, क्योंकि लाइक आई सेड लाइफ इज टू शॉर्ट टू आर्ग्यू, एंड आई एम नोबडी यार, आई एम नॉट गॉड और एनीवन. आई फाउंड वन वे ऑफ लिविंग. I am a I when I was born, nobody gave me a, like, मुझे नहीं पता था, my subconscious didn't know I was Hindu or anything. The way I was brought up, it said कि you are a Hindu person. There are certain rituals you follow. अगर मैं किसी मुस्लिम फैमिली में बॉर्न हुआ होता तो मैं कुरान पढ़ रहा होता अभी. उसमें कौन सी बहुत बड़ी बात है? कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है. आप जब पैदा होते हैं एंड जब आप मरते हैं और आप पैदा होते हैं, ईशान, मैंने वही देखा है कि आपके सर पे कुछ नहीं होता. आप खाली, वो सही है, आप खाली हाथ आए थे, आप खाली हाथ जाओगे, ठीक है. उसके बीच में जो है वो आपके ऊपर डिपेंड करता है. एंड देन यू हैव टू बिल्ड योर ओन रेजिलियंस. इफ यू आर अ बिलीव इन आइडल वर्शिप, और लेट्स से somebody else is a strong believer of Islam, Christianity, whatever they follow, those religions were also made to provide order to some individuals.
Exactly.
हर रिलीजन का कोर पर्पस यही है कि आप उसको फॉलो करके एक बेहतर आदमी बने. कोई
हाँ.
रिलीजन कहीं ये नहीं कहता कि भाई आप जाके किसी को मारे कटे करें. वो that has just, unfortunately, that is where the human devil mindset has come in. But every religion talks कि भाई you should get your resources, live a life in peace. You can follow some of these good, चाहे वो postulates हों, चाहे वो axioms हों, हर religion में है, right? Every religion has a backstory in some form. It could be some prophet talking about something, or something like Siddhartha talking about the concepts of Buddhism, living on, about living that. Or it could be India Hindu idols, Ram, Lakshman, Sita या शिव कुछ बता रहे हैं, but they all talk about living a life peacefully and living a good resourceful life, a good life, ठीक है. वो end goal है यार, ठीक है. अब इसमें मान लो somebody can find solace in this structure. I believe I will never have any problems, ठीक है. Why will I have any problem? No problems as an independent human being. But if I don't find solace in the postulates and the axioms that were built, I also have the choice to get out of it.
Yeah.
And if I don't raise a finger on my friend who goes to the temple and prays 10 times a day, then he or she should also not
Exactly.
unnecessary
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
क्योंकि मेरे बिकॉज मेरे एक्सपीरियंसेस अलग हैं. मैंने देखा जब आदमी मरा तो कुछ नहीं लेके गया. अब तुम उस चीज से ऑपरेट कर रहे हो, दिस लाइफ आफ्टर दैट. मैं ऑपरेट कर रहा हूँ जो मेरे सामने था, मैं लॉजिक से ऑपरेट कर रहा हूँ. तो यार तो हम तो फिर क्लैश करेंगे ही ना.
हाँ.
तो बेस्ट है कि लिव एंड लेट लिव. आप आई विल नेवर डिसरिस्पेक्ट योर वे ऑफ लिविंग. It could be through a religion, it could be something else you come up with. There are different concepts, different versions of the same religion, so you should technically question के सच है क्या, right? कोई
Yeah.
सच
Yeah.
कलेक्टिवली जो इस्लाम इंडिया में फॉलो होता है वो सऊदी अरेबिया में बहुत अलग तरीके से ट्वीक हो जाता है वो लॉज. तुम देखोगे कि कई सारी चीजें जो वहां इम्प्लीमेंट होती हैं, यहाँ के जो यहाँ के जो रिनाउंड लोग हैं वो उस चीज से कई बार डिसएग्री करते हैं, कई बार
Right.
एग्री करते हैं. तो even the way Hinduism is operated in Nepal, which is predominantly a Hindu country, is very different on how you will find Hindus
In India. Yeah.
worshipping in India in different concept in
Oh, yeah.
different cities.
Yeah. Yeah.
हमारी पूजा मेरी पूजा में अलग अंतर हो सकता है यार.
Hmm.
मतलब तुम अग्रवाल हो, मैं भी माहेश्वरी हूँ, कहने को हम सेम कास्ट और उन सब से एक तरह से आते हैं, डिसेंडेंट से. तो तुम्हारी और मेरी में भी पूरा अलग हो सकता है.
Hmm.
तो इसलिए what I saw so much of this, and I had fortunately had good friends from different religious backgrounds when I was growing up. So I eventually realized that it's just giving you some good best practices of living.
Principles. Yeah.
हाँ, आप फॉलो करिए, उनको फॉलो करिए तो अच्छे से करिए. ये नहीं कि फिर आप अननेसेसरी उसमें भी कमी निकाल रहे. नहीं, if you have a way of living, why are you commenting on somebody else's way of living? That's not what is there in the postulate ना. If तो वहीं पे लड़ाई हो जाती है, वहीं पे प्रॉब्लम हो रही है. You know, some people feel that this is the absolute, जबकि they are not realizing that they were simply born. It was just given to them as a what do you say, जैसे
It's
प्रॉपर्टी
passed down.
के
It's
लिए
passed
जाती है
down.
ना,
It's
इट्स
passed down
पास
knowledge.
डाउन.
No?
हाँ, प्रॉपर्टी तुम्हें पास डाउन हो जाता है कि तुम्हारे पिता की प्रॉपर्टी बच्चों में चली जाती है. वो उसी तरह ही गया है, तो उसको इतना लोड लेने का जरूरत नहीं है. आप उसको बहुत आराम से ले सकते हैं. कई लोग जो कन्वर्जन भी करते हैं, ठीक है, उनका पर्सपेक्टिव है एक, बट एट द एंड इट्स ऑल अबाउट कि वो धर्म या वो चीज आपको उस तरीके बता रही है यार. एंड दैट्स व्हाट वन डे, जो मैंने एक स्टोरी भी जो है मेरी पॉडकास्ट में, इंडियन पर्पल काउ, इट्स अबाउट दिस ओनली. लाइक आई हैड जस्ट हैड दिस रैंडम थिंग के क्या पता है ये सब कोई भगवान सही में है या कुछ भी ना हो. किसी एक ने बस किसी को आइडिया आ गया कि हाँ यार, festival, because everything that's common across festivals is there is a boom, there is a sale, everyone looks for the festive season. It doesn't matter कि दिवाली बन रही है या ईद आ रही है.
Either. हाँ.
उस रिलीजन के बंदे के लिए वो फेस्टिवल टाइम पीरियड इज अ प्रॉस्परिंग पीरियड. तुम वहां से मुझे एक फिक्टिशियस एक कहानी आ गई, क्या पता ऐसा भी हो, और तो हमने कभी सोचा ही ना. हम तो सोचते हैं कि कोई ऊपर से आया था और हमें कुछ बता के चला गया, राइट. तो आई फाइनली रियलाइज के इसमें इस डिबेट में फंसने का वो नहीं है. लाइक आई सेड, लाइफ इज टू शॉर्ट टू आर्ग्यू. यू हैव अ बिलीफ, फाइन, आई हैव अ बिलीफ. अगर तुम्हें लगता है कि मैं उसमें ना मान के नर्क में जाऊंगा, ठीक है ना, तुम थोड़ी ना मेरे साथ आ रहे हो. जाऊंगा तो मैं अकेला जाऊंगा, जान दो. पता भी नहीं है कि है या नहीं, लेकिन वो प्रिंसिपल्स चले आ रहे हैं सालों से. नहीं पता भाई किसी को, ठीक है. तो इतना जिन चीजों के बारे में पता नहीं है उन पे स्पेकुलेशन करके वर्ल्ड वॉर करने का मतलब, ठीक है वो कर रही है दुनिया, बट इतना लोड नहीं लेना चाहिए, इज व्हाट आई फील.
अबे आप thoroughly
बहुत
enjoy.
छोटी है, बहुत छोटी है, पता है ईशान. लाइफ इज टू स्मॉल.
Too short.
वंस यू
Yeah.
स्टार्ट लिविंग एट इट कॉन्शियसली, राइट, यू विल स्टार्ट रियलाइजिंग के it's not worth wasting even a single penny of it in the wrong direction. People talk about higher concepts like passion and everything, ठीक है. That's because now the identity economy is coming in, who am I is being devised by what I do, right? But have you ever seen your grandparents like cribbing when they are now 80 years old, और मैंने अपना passion follow नहीं किया, or do you think your parents are now struggling कि अरे हम ये. Life बहुत simple है. Like if you look at them, the lesson you can learn is, for them the life is very simple. शादी करी, एक family आई, have enough living, have kids, raise them, go ahead. We have complicated our lives way too much, and somewhere social media has like messed it up for a lot of us because we never talk about failures on social media.
So with that, like I think about that, right? Because like if I'm thinking about myself, because if I have to consider social media, if I'm walking down the street, okay, and if I meet some stranger, it's not like I'm going to say that, oh, look, someone passed away, a relative passed away, you should know about this, that, what. Like I don't know, maybe in a common person would generally say, oh, how is your day? Nice, this is something good that's happened with me, or whatever. I don't know if maybe social media is just a general perception of like how we would want to present ourselves, right? Because that's what it is, like people presenting themselves in the way they want to be presented, which is also another thing. So there's postmodern thought, which I have no respect for, basically. So it comes down to the fact that it doesn't matter what's objective until and unless you think what you are, what your identity is, what everything is, like you are basically what the world is, basically. So you can decide how people should be appropriating you, you decide everything, basically. So, and I think that's what comes down into social media as well, because then they feel that they don't almost have to even consider what the world is, because they know that they are living in their almost cubicle, that this is my set of friends. I know that whatever thought I'm going to put out, whatever story I'm going to put out, whatever post I'm going to put out, I'm going to get these friends who'd always agree with me. So why do I even have to care about the rest, right?
Yeah, yeah. See, the purpose of social media, if you look at Facebook when it came out in early 2000, it had a chat section. It has a section to simply put your bio. बहुत
Hmm.
basic था. The intent for any kind of media, Friendster or Orkut or all, was simply to chat with people who you know or new friends to make. ठीक है? Um, I think the way we have used it and the
Hmm.
new products and tools like button and
Huh.
everything, and like we discussed earlier on in the conversation, that every nothing's the way it is, the way it seems, like it's all a projection. तो क्या
Hmm.
करते हैं corporate firms जो हैं, like collectively when 10 heads come together, they realize there is a potential of this idea to earn so much money,
Hmm.
right? They implement it. Nobody is holding anyone responsible. Why people have committed suicide just because they did not have sufficient likes on their video? are
Yeah.
you are you suing Facebook for it? No, because that's what the entire perception around anything that comes in is made. If you study marketing case studies, even though they are case studies of the products that you do, but it's all a big projection of how it is. टुडे इंस्टेंट नूडल्स इज कंसिडर्ड मैगी. कभी
Hmm.
बोला है कि मैं इंस्टेंट नूडल खा रहा हूँ? भले यू आर ईटिंग, मतलब आईटीसी का तुम खा रहे हो, बट यू आर स्टिल टॉकिंग अबाउट नेस्ले का मैगी.
Huh.
सो यू सी, तो इट्स ब्रांड परसेप्शन जो है, जो
Hmm.
इसलिए ब्रांडिंग, मार्केटिंग, इंटरनल कम्युनिकेशंस, एक्सटर्नल कम्युनिकेशंस, everything is very curated. So everyone wants to use, and उसी के कारण आज ऐसा हो गया है कि सोशल मीडिया का एक अलग फॉर्म चला गया है. अब ऐसा हो गया है कि अच्छा मेरे पास 5 मिलियन व्यूज आ रहे हैं, तो मैं उस व्यूज से पैसे भी कमा सकता हूँ, मैं
Hmm.
वो व्यूज बना भी सकता हूँ, और मैं उन व्यूज को अलग तरह से एक्सप्लॉइट भी कर सकता हूँ, राइट? And you will find some people who did not adopt this social media, and you will see the regional content, the regional art, the regional film industry. You will see that those who did not choose to go in the mainstream, उनको दुनिया कह देती है कि ये स्ट्रगलर हैं. But if you go and ask them, they might just enjoy that. They probably
Yeah.
don't care about coming into mainstream.
Yeah.
There is an institute here in Pune called National Film Archive of India, NFAI. It's right opposite Film and Television Institute, FTII. Okay, so NFAI is the repository of all the films that are ever made in India.
Oh wow.
Okay, like every language. We are only looking at Bollywood, Tollywood, and a little bit
Huh,
of
huh, huh.
South cinema. But there is Assamese cinema, there is Odia cinema, there is Marathi film industry. They are big on their own. And NFAI has digital copy of every single movie ever produced.
Oh wow.
They keep doing these shows, from time to time. Like I remember 2-3 साल पहले they did something like Northeastern Film Festival. I thought कौन जाएगा देखने? Have you ever seen a Northeastern film? You
Never.
probably won't see because it's not in your region. You don't understand the language, so you wouldn't even bother to go. कि भाई देखेंगे. But subtitles has made things
Huh.
so easy.
Yeah.
And when I went to NFAI for the North Indian Film Festival, I saw so many people coming and watching that cinema. And they were not of Northeast origin. They were people like me who were just enthusiastic about different forms of cinema. So that's when you realize that there's a world outside of you, and those people are completely fine if they do not become the talk of the town or if they are not viral.
Hmm.
Yashraj Mukhate, log people are only talking about that rasode mein kaun tha incident. If you go and scroll his entire Instagram history, he's been making videos for a very long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So nobody sees it. Like I said, like wahi sara
Hmm.
perception wahi hai. What makes you famous becomes your immediate spot. But when you go into their history, when you go and see Pankaj Tripadi's history,
Hmm.
he's been doing plays on the road.
Yeah.
On the road नुक्कड़ नाटक करते थे वो इतना ज्यादा, लेकिन nobody speaks about them. When you say Pankaj Tripathi, मिर्जापुर आ गया, gangs of Wasseypur आ गया, अरे
Hmm.
यार, his craft was formed from real things around him. It's not Mirzapur and all gave him the fame and the limelight he deserves, but his art was formed through 20 years of struggle.
Hmm.
And this patience of 20 years of struggling, I don't think the next upcoming generation जो Instagram पे TikTok
Yeah.
और ये सब बना रहे हैं, they will many few people will know about it, yaar.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a big, I don't know if you're aware, but H&M store है
Hmm.
Connaught Place में. उसके पीछे ना एक गली है जहाँ पे प्री कोविड में लोग आके बट टिकटॉक के वीडियो बनाते थे. And there's a proper media coverage on it, and I was surprised. And they say that people do rehearse whatever they are saying, and they rehearse
Yeah.
in their
Yeah.
home,
Yeah.
and the next day they come and they shoot and they take multiple takes.
Dude,
So
even I
it's
didn't know about this, bro. They have. So I was listening to this interview of this influencer, and she was saying that she thinks she's like a proper comic only because she actually writes down and thinks about the punchlines that she's going to put forward in her reels. So it's she says that it's like any other thing. It's just that you may think there's not a lot of work because it's just 15-second clip or 30-second clip. So it's like, oh, anyone can say that. But then even those guys
uh,
are putting it, whatever we may want to say of it. I think it's really hard work, whatever. But
it's
yeah,
hard work, but the
yeah,
problem is when, because it has a wider reach, is, and this is
yeah,
again my opinion, there's a wider reach. So what happens is the concept of instant gratification also kicks
yeah,
in.
yeah.
That's one big problem. I mean, I'm saying that you will, it is very difficult to find people down the line. And when I say down the line, I'm talking about 20, 30 years down the
Hmm.
line. Somebody like Pankaj Tripathi who stuck onto his passion and was doing odds and sort of things just to get that one break in the industry.
Hmm.
नवाजुद्दीन सिद्दीकी, I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but उसने गार्ड का नौकरी किया यार. गार्ड का नौकरी किया, and then now so everyone saw, oh, what a wonderful actor he is. But are you seeing where they're coming from?
Right.
KK Menon, if you take his
Hmm.
journey, KK Menon was a proper MBA. He did exactly what everyone asked him to do. But if you see his roots, he left his very high paying job and then he joined this movie industry. The kind of cinema, the kind of big things he pick up is very different. So he has a very different appreciation base. It may
Hmm.
not be as big as some of the superstars, but he has his own. And I'm sure that because he's still in the industry, he doesn't even care about having that kind of a level of stardom. He is more focused on the art, and that will is what will bring eventual contentment to
Yeah,
your
I think
life.
so too. I think so too. I think um, if be it anyone of the examples you've put forward with Pankaj Tripathi, Nawazuddin Siddiqui, if there is let's say an obsession with the art almost, so if they're so obsessed with let's say acting, so I think I've heard because I'm a big fan of Pankaj Tripathi myself. I've listened to a lot of his interviews as well. So he's spoken about that when he was speaking to the newcomers, they said that they didn't want to become an actor; they want to become a hero, which is fundamentally two different things. If that makes sense. So they wanted to be on the billboards, be the front person, be this, be that, but they didn't really have that much of a care for acting as just acting. And he said that's where I sort of disagreed with them. So he said I fundamentally liked acting. It doesn't matter if I'm working on a theater or a skit, or if I'm working on a big blockbuster. The fact that I get to just play different roles, that's enriching for me in itself. So I think if someone is so obsessed with whatever they want to achieve, then maybe yeah, they would go down, even if it's long periods of time where they aren't getting
Ah.
fandom. But
And the
touching,
thing is, ki,
huh?
are you seeking it? See, I'll give you one more
Right,
example.
right.
Sorry to
No, no, no,
interrupt you
good,
there.
good, it's fine.
Pankaj Tripathi has spoken numerous times about the support that his wife gave
Yeah.
him through these years. There was a period that he has very openly said that he was living off his wife's salary, right?
Hmm.
Have you ever seen any media channel covering his wife's story? They are
No.
covering, they are covering, I'm not going to give out names, but they are covering actors of nepotism origin
Right.
under women empowerment sections. But if you truly see,
Yeah.
have you, I would want to know what she felt, what Pankaj Tripathi's
Mm.
wife felt. How did she feel? And when she was walking down the road, and when she would have got some taunts that तुम्हारा पति काम नहीं करता है, I would want to know how she got through that phase,
Mm.
because that really empowers anyone, both the women, that there is possibility that if she can do it for her family and the dreams of her husband, can at least do it for myself,
Mm.
right? That's a more inspiring story than listening to, like, yesterday a news that was, see, that's the thing, fandom, if you crave for the public commercial eye, they will always look for stuff which is irrelevant, and
Mm.
also depends on your eye of looking at it. Somebody covered yesterday that Kareena Kapoor wore a 25,000 rupee ka Louis Vuitton mask. Is that a news to be covered? I removed TOI app from my phone because every 5 minutes was telling me ke which actor was getting where, and
Oh
this
wow.
person went to the gym, and yeah, why? Is that news? Is that what today's news is really? So everything's diluted, and जो हम बोलते हैं ना कि उसको वो चाहिए तो वो उसको मिल जाएगा, वो बात ये है यार कि हर कोई चाहता है कि मैं अगर आर्ट कर रहा हूँ तो इसको मैं, पंकज त्रिपाठी would have always thought when he was doing the smallest of the role कि यार मेरे को भी बड़ा आदमी बनना है, ठीक है. If somebody says that he never had that thought, it's very hard to believe, ठीक है. So, but he still kept on doing, like you said, because those are the people made of
Mm.
different material. Their origin was not fame. Their origin was, I like it, I would want to do it, I
Yeah.
don't care even if only one person watches it. Which is what which is what I also feel when I make my podcast ke,
Yeah.
it's okay, I just let people know okay, there's a new episode out. I'm not going to hammer it again and again, watch these guys.
Mm.
I
Mm.
have, there are three people who are sending me, I don't want to name them, they've been constantly sending me stuff. I have not opted for it, okay, I cannot be rude onto them also, but they're constantly sending their travel photos and me.
Oh,
Why?
okay. Yeah.
That means you're not doing it for yourself, you're traveling because the world want to see, you want the world to see
To
that you're
see,
a
yeah.
traveler.
Yeah.
अरे just travel ना, go like chill मार के बैठो भाई, click one photo, put it, that's it. If somebody really admires your travel story, they will follow. Create content worthy enough to stay over there. Don't talk about it too much.
Mm.
I'll promise I'll close with this last
No, no,
analogy.
no.
uh, so in my college days, I used to be part of this racing team, okay, and we used to build cars from ground up, and we used to race on international events. Now the biggest problem with with our team was that we had to build, our engine wasn't running. Like, unlike other competitions, the engine was given by a sponsor. For us, the engine was also like to be built from ground up. We have to do engine tuning, a lot of managing part electronics, सब कुछ खुद करना होता था. So getting the engine running is a very big challenge at that time. Now we don't have a running car, that's the ground reality. Engine nahi hai, so there's no running car. I had joined the team, and मेरे एक senior थे सुबु भैया. तो सुबु को मैंने बोला, सुबु एक काम करते हैं, we'll not display the car wonderfully in the college campus, we'll create this poster, we'll create this video that will attract a lot of marketing, that will attract a lot of sponsors. And he's like, उससे क्या होगा? I said, no, you will get sponsors, you will get funds, and then we'll be able to use the funds to do
Mm.
better things. He told me this one single line, and he just went away. He just said, and he just went away. He's like, there is no better publicity than a running car. That's it. That is the concept. You can throw around tens and tons of concepts. Okay, oh, this is my poster. This is what I'm doing. You can talk about it a lot, but unless and until it misses the main crux of the content,
Yeah.
it will not achieve the biggest way of talking about, which is word of mouth.
Mm.
Word of mouth, आज कुछ भी कह लो, चाहे वेस्ट हो, ईस्ट हो, इंडिया हो, सेंट्रल हो, नॉर्थ हो, if you like something, I am going to listen to it because my friend told me by mouth
Mm.
or
Mm.
shared with me. Unless you achieve that thing, nothing is going to get viral also. Viral भी क्या होता है, ऐसे ही होता है ना कि
हाँ.
भाई इसने देखा, उसने देखा, वैसे देखा. तो अनफॉर्चुनेटली हम कंटेंट की क्वालिटी और उसकी डेवलपमेंट पे इतना फोकस नहीं करते जितना हम उसकी पब्लिसिटी पे फोकस करते हैं. और
Mm.
अगर कोई चीज अच्छी नहीं है तो कितनी भी मार्केटिंग कर लो, वो नहीं बिकेगी यार.
नहीं.
मतलब ऐसा नहीं होता है, ठीक है. Somewhere or the other, people will realize that this probably doesn't have the value which it's claiming it to have.
Mm.
So that's what is extremely important. And I hope that people down the line continue, to have these kind of, at least this kind of thought that what they have to produce should add some value, not
Right.
just to them, but to people. And that's where it becomes truly memorable, because if everyone's making the same Instagram video, they're dancing, and is that really like, I don't know. I can't, maybe it adds value to
Right.
them personally.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not adding any value in the society that's there. It's like the project that I wanted to do in college. Like I always wanted to make instant beer, like
Okay.
instant
Yeah.
coffee.
Huh.
So I went to this professor in our pharma college, because freeze drying and a few concepts used to be done there. And that person looked at me and he's like, dude, we are a pharma college. We make medicines for the betterment of society. If you want to do a project, do something that like benefits society in some form. Why do you want to do make like instant beer and all? So sometimes I look at Instagram and the social media, I feel some of the content is just there to amuse for
Hmm.
purely entertainment. There will always be some people who will have a very different perspective to the world, and they will shape the kind of content which will come up, which everyone will keep dancing to. Like there will always be one Yashraj Mukherjee who will make Rasode Mein Kaun Tha, and then there will be a million people after him who will keep dancing on Rasode Mein Kaun Tha.
Kaun tha.
So from time to time, you will always find these people who set the benchmark. And if you aspire to be that benchmark, I think that is where I feel that somewhere the next coming generations might have a little difficulty if the social media spread is not contained the way it is consumed right now.
Abhay, thanks for coming on once again. I've really enjoyed our conversation here today. Hope we can do this sometime again in the future, hopefully in person. If there's anything you'd like to leave my listeners, my watchers with, feel free to.
I think you're doing a fantastic job, Ishan, in terms of bringing out genuine conversations with people. I've heard your other podcast as well. So I think kudos to you for going a little deeper and trying to get thoughts and information which are unfiltered and not restricted by the screens of our social media. So that's about it. And I think, yeah, everyone, like, people need to just calm down a little in their lives and take a pause and understand that you know everything either has a political inclination or a capitalistic inclination, and in the larger scheme of things, you're a very small cog in this very big world that is there. So uh, a life that is well lived, I think, is a life that we should aspire for, and especially in these tough times. And of course, whatever is our capacity, we should definitely continue to help others that we can in either physical form or either through support in their mental health journey.
Listen, thanks for wasting so much time with me. I hope we can do sometime again. Thank you. Bye.